Chapter 26. After returning to his room on the third floor, Ji Tianxing took off his mask. His expression was solemn and his heart was heavy. He had expected that when the red star flower bloomed, many forces would rush to the Taiyi mountain range to snatch it. However, he did not expect that there would be hundreds of martial artists gathered in an inn in Taiyi town. These martial artists were basically at the true energy realm, and there were even a few experts at the 7th level of the true energy realm. There were a few martial artists at the body refining realm, but they were all here to join in the fun and had no hope of snatching the red star flower. To Ji Tianxing, the martial artists in this inn were all potential competitors or enemies. There were already so many martial artists staying in the inn. How many forces and martial artists were not staying in the inn and were hiding in the dark? When he thought of this, Ji Tianxing felt his heart grow heavier. When night fell, he sat cross-legged on his bed to cultivate after dinner and continued to condense the sword qi. Although the number of sword qi had reached the limit, he absorbed the qi of heaven and earth to make each sword qi more condensed and powerful. By the time he had condensed and strengthened all 12 sword qi, 6 hours had passed. In the middle of the night, the Lai Fu Inn fell into silence. Most of the guests had already gone to bed. Only the main hall was still lit. After Ji Tianxing finished cultivating, he walked to the window and was about to close it and sleep. However, from the corner of his eye, he suddenly caught sight of 2 silhouettes in the corner of the backyard. They were silently creeping about. The 2 martial artists were dressed in black and seemed to be wearing masks. Their movements were very cautious and did not make any sound. Although the night was dark, Ji Tianxing could vaguely see that the 2 men were carrying a big box and creeping to the back door. The 2 men quietly opened the back door and carried the box out. Ji Tianxing frowned and vaguely felt that something was wrong. He subconsciously went out of the room and crept silently toward the back door of the courtyard. He was wearing a black cloak and a mask. He was not afraid of being discovered in the night. When he reached the back door, he saw the 2 cultivators carrying the box and entering an alley along the courtyard wall. In order to avoid being discovered by the other party, he did not dare to get too close. A moment later, 2 masked warriors carried the box into the depths of the alley and carried it into a pitch-black room. Then, the 2 of them withdrew and quietly returned to the Fortune Inn. Ji Tianxing hid in a dark corner of the alley, holding his breath and not making a sound. After the 2 cultivators left, he entered the pitch-black room. The room seemed to have been uninhabited for many years. It was filled with a decaying smell. There were cobwebs everywhere, and the floor was covered with dust and debris. Ji Tianxing searched in the dark for a while before he found the big box in a pile of firewood in the corner. He tried to lift it, but the weight of the box was very heavy, as if it was filled with steel or stone. Puzzled, he took out a match and lit it, using the weak light to check the box. With just a glance, he frowned, and his eyes were filled with doubt. The iron box was locked, and the lock was a palm-sized gear. It needed to be rotated to the correct position to open it. Ji Tianxing was very familiar with this kind of box. Because the Ji family's forging workshop used this kind of box to store weapons and equipment, he tried to rotate the black gear, and twisted it to the correct position. The lock opened with a pa-da sound. Ji Tianxing opened the box to take a look. Inside the box, there were more than 20 treasured swords with scabbards made of mermaid skin. Mermaids were high-level vicious beasts in the sea. The Ji family's forging workshop would only use this kind of scabbards for profound-grade treasured swords. Ji Tianxing casually picked up a treasured sword and examined the sword hilt. He saw the word Ji engraved on the sword hilt. His face became even gloomier, and the doubt in his eyes became even stronger. He looked at the patterns on the sword's blade. The thorny flower pattern made him immediately conclude that this profound-grade treasured sword came from the Profound Sword Workshop in the eastern suburbs of the imperial city. It really is a treasured sword forged by my Ji family. These 24 profound-grade treasured swords are worth more than 1,000,000 taels. Why would they appear here? Isn't the Profound Sword Workshop in the eastern suburbs under second uncle's control? Ji Tianxing's heart was filled with doubt. He felt that this matter was a little fishy. In order not to be discovered, he put the treasured swords back into the box, and locked the lock again. Then he extinguished the torch, and quietly returned to the Laifu Inn. However, when he returned to the Laifu Inn, there were endless quarrels and curses coming from the main hall. When Ji Tianxing walked into the main hall, he saw two figures fighting fiercely, and the clanging sound of swords clashing could be heard. He understood after hearing a few words. It turned out that the inn was full, and there was only one room left. Two groups of people just happened to arrive at the inn at the same time, so they quarreled over that room. One of the groups was 3 youths from the imperial city of Green Cloud. The 3 of them were dressed gorgeously and had a noble aura. Naturally, they were proud and arrogant, and when they spoke, they were overbearing. The other group of 4 came from the valiant barbarian state. They were all dressed in beastskin clothes, and all of them had full beards and braids. Their arms and chests were full of tattoos. The leader of the 4 had a fiery temper. He did not care if the other party was a noble from the imperial city, and just a few words would cause a fight. The quarrel and fighting between the 2 sides woke up more than 10 guests, and they all ran to the main hall to watch the show. Ji Tianxing did not want to get involved in this kind of thing. He walked through the main hall and was about to step onto the stairs to return to his room. Unfortunately, when the true energy boundary white-robed youth slashed his sword at the bald man with the tattoo on his forehead, the bald man's sword was fiercely chopped at. Immediately, the sword that was flickering with a cold light changed its direction and went straight for Ji Tianxing. The white-robed youth was already very close to Ji Tianxing, only 5 steps away. This sword came out of nowhere and was as fast as lightning. Although Ji Tianxing retreated in time to dodge, he was still unable to avoid the treasured sword, and his cheek was immediately slashed by the blade. With a crisp clang, the black iron mask on his face was cut in half by the treasured sword, and fell to the ground with a clang. Ji Tianxing's face suddenly became gloomy, and his eyes flashed with a cold light. The white-robed youth and the bald man glanced at him, and without any change in expression, continued to fight. However, the white-robed youth's 2 companions who had been watching the fight and cheering suddenly let out a cry of surprise when their eyes fell on Ji Tianxing's face. Isn't this Ji Tianxing? Young Master Ji of the Ji family? As expected of the former number 1 genius, but now the great trash Ji. He can't even dodge the sword. If young Master Ji's face is accidentally injured, we can't afford to pay for it. Obviously, the 2 noble youths knew Ji Tianxing, and saw through his identity on the spot. Brothers and sisters, please add, please recommend, my new book needs everyone's support. Xiaohe thanks you. Chapter 27. The hall quietened down. Even the white-robed youth and the bald man stopped fighting at the same time. Everyone's eyes fell on Ji Tianxing, sizing him up with a playful look. Although most of the martial artists present had never seen Ji Tianxing before, they had never seen him before. But everyone had heard of his name. In the past 3 years, his title as the number 1 genius of the imperial city had spread throughout the Azure Sky Kingdom. Almost all the martial artists knew of him. 10 days ago, his strength had dropped and he became a trash at the 3rd level of the body refinement realm. He had become the biggest joke in the Azure Sky Kingdom. This incident had made his reputation even more resounding. Recently, he had been the topic of gossip and jokes among the common people. The dozens of martial artists in the hall who were watching the show all looked at him with ridicule and whispered to each other. Unfortunately, the blue-robed youth of the 2 aristocratic youths seemed to be afraid that others didn't know about Ji Tianxing's deeds and unscrupulously mocked him. Everyone look, this is the man of the hour in the Azure Sky Kingdom, Ji Tianxing. Not only did this guy become a trash at the 3rd level of the body refinement realm, he even had his marriage annulled by the eldest daughter of the Ling family. The funniest thing is that this guy doesn't even dare to let out a fart. What a coward. Saying this, he even gave Ji Tianxing a disdainful sneer. Young Master Ji, you secretly came to Taiyi Town. Could it be that you want to snatch the red star flower and use it to recover your strength? Haha, you're really delusional and indulging in wild fantasies. Before the blue-robed youth could finish his words, everyone suddenly felt the temperature in the hall drop by a few degrees. Swish. Ji Tianxing's figure flashed and rushed in front of the blue-robed youth. With a clang, he pulled out the blood dragon sword and stabbed towards his chest. The blue-robed youth turned pale with fright and subconsciously retreated to dodge. He didn't expect that the third level of the body refinement realm Ji Tianxing would dare to attack him. He had the strength of the first level of the true element realm. If not, he wouldn't dare to mock Ji Tianxing so unscrupulously. However, Ji Tianxing's sword was too fast. It was so fast that he couldn't dodge it at all. He was about to be stabbed in the chest by the blood dragon sword and die on the spot. He let out a terrified scream. "Save me." The blood dragon sword suddenly changed from a stab to a slap and slapped on his face. The incomparably powerful force caused him to stagger, and he fell to the ground with a plop. He only felt dizzy, and his head was as heavy as paste. He struggled a few times but couldn't get up. A burning pain came from his cheek. He subconsciously reached out to touch his cheek, only to find that half of his face was swollen like a steamed bun, and blood was dripping from the corner of his mouth. At this moment, Ji Tianxing arrived in front of him and placed the blood dragon sword on his neck. Ji Tianxing looked down at him condescendingly. His entire body was filled with cold killing intent, and the corners of his mouth curled up into a disdainful sneer. "If you say I'm trash, then what are you?" The blue-robed young man was so embarrassed that he wanted to die. His face turned red, but he couldn't say a word. The hall was silent. Everyone stared at Ji Tianxing and the blue-robed young man in disbelief. No one dared to believe that Ji Tianxing, who was rumored to be trash in the body refinement realm, could defeat the blue-robed young man in one move. This was simply unbelievable. Could it be that the news from the Imperial City was fake? Or could it be that Ji Tianxing's strength had already recovered? The expressions of many cultivators became complicated as they secretly speculated in their hearts. The blue-robed young man's two companions were also shocked by Ji Tianxing's aura. They stood rooted to the ground with stiff expressions and didn't dare to act rashly. "Trash." Ji Tianxing glanced at the blue-robed young man in disdain. He put away the blood dragon sword and turned to leave. Everyone in the hall looked at his back, but no one dared to stop him. The blue-robed young man was humiliated to the extreme. He was so angry that he trembled and almost vomited blood. After Ji Tianxing returned to his room, he didn't feel sleepy at all. What happened in the hall was just a small interlude. He didn't take it to heart. He sat quietly by the window, secretly monitoring the dark backyard. 4 hours passed, but there was still no movement in the backyard. It was close to dawn. The darkness before dawn was the time when people were the most sleepy and relaxed. Ji Tianxing's mind was also a little tired. He thought to himself, "Will those people not appear tonight?" At this moment, he suddenly saw the two black figures appear again. They were silently creeping towards the back door. He was immediately full of energy. He quietly crept into the backyard and followed the two black figures out of the back door. After a while, the two black figures entered the small alley and carried the big box out of the shabby room. The two clearly had good strength. They carried the big box and easily climbed over the high wall at the end of the alley. They silently rushed out of Tai Town. Ji Tianxing quickly followed them. He kept a distance of 30 meters from the two black figures. He quietly rushed towards the east of the town. The east of Tai Town was a low-lying mountain range. There was a large river at the foot of the mountain. It flowed towards the hanging cloud city. After a quarter of an hour, dawn arrived. A trace of white appeared on the horizon. The two black figures had already rushed out of Tai Town. They entered the mountain range on the east side of the town and rushed towards the depths of the mountain range. Ji Tianxing followed the two black figures into the mountain. He followed them for a distance of 10 miles. Then, he stopped in front of a shabby temple halfway up the mountain. The sun was rising from the east. A layer of thin fog still covered the mountain. The sound of birds chirping could be heard from the forest not far away. There was still sparkling dew on the wild grass and leaves. The shabby temple was silent. More than half of the mountain gate and walls had already collapsed. There were many spider webs hanging on the roof beams and eaves. Ji Tianxing watched the two black figures carry the big box into the shabby temple. Then, he quietly climbed up a big tree outside the courtyard wall. He used the cover of the dense foliage to hide in the treetops. He secretly monitored the situation in the temple. Not long after, 3 martial artists rushed from the foot of the mountain. They entered the shabby temple with vigilant expressions. The leader was a middle-aged man with a body as thin as a bamboo pole. His skin was dark and his cheeks were long and narrow like a horse's face. The two martial artists beside him were dressed in black. They seemed to be his attendants or bodyguards. After the three of them entered the shabby temple, the two black figures immediately came forward to greet them. The two sides whispered a few words. Then, the horse-faced man ordered his attendants to carry the big box and hurriedly left the shabby temple. Although Ji Tianxing could not hear the contents of their conversation, he could guess that they were making a deal. He frowned in confusion. He secretly speculated in his heart, they are making a deal with the Ji clan's weapons. Why are they being so secretive and secretive? Could it be that they have some ulterior motive? After a while, the horse-faced man and his two companions went down the mountain. The two black figures in the courtyard then prepared to leave. It seemed that they were in a good mood because the deal had been successfully completed. The two of them walked out of the shabby temple side by side with smiles on their faces. They were even whispering to each other. Ji Tianxing had been following them from afar. He could only see their backs. He had always felt that the tall and sturdy martial artist was somewhat familiar. Now, when he saw the appearance of the two black figures, his face suddenly became gloomy. It's actually him. Xu Zifeng. Second uncle's right-hand man. Chapter 28. Xu Zifeng was a capable subordinate of the Ji family's second elder. He was deeply trusted and valued by the second elder and had always been in charge of the workshop in the eastern suburbs. In the past, he had entered the Ji mansion many times to report the situation of the workshop to the second elder. Ji Tianxing was no stranger to Xu Zifeng. In his impression, this person was shrewd and capable. He handled matters steadily and saw the big picture. He was indeed worthy of an important position. But he never would have thought that Xu Zifeng would appear in Tai Town and surreptitiously trade with a group of mysterious people for the Ji family's magical weapons. Could it be that this person is stuffing his own pockets and stealing magical weapons from the workshop to sell privately? That box of magical weapons is worth more than 1 million taels of silver. No, I must investigate this thoroughly. Ji Tianxing secretly held the blood dragon sword tightly. His eyes flashed with a frightening cold light. At this time, Xu Zifeng and the black-clothed youth walked out of the ruined temple side by side and were about to walk down the mountain. Ji Tianxing suddenly jumped down from the treetops and landed on the grass with a swoosh, blocking Xu Zifeng and the black-clothed youth's path. Xu Zifeng and the black-clothed youth were not prepared for someone to descend from the sky. They were immediately startled and stared at Ji Tianxing with vigilance. After seeing Ji Tianxing's face, Xu Zifeng's expression suddenly changed. He stammered, eldest young master? Why is it you? Ji Tianxing stared at him with a sharp gaze and asked in a deep voice, Xu Zifeng, you have big guts. You dare to steal the Ji family's magical weapons and trade privately. Xu Zifeng's expression became extremely ugly. He hurriedly explained, eldest young master, you misunderstood. I am loyal and devoted to the Ji family. How could I do such a thing? Ji Tianxing approached him with a cold expression and coldly shouted again, misunderstanding? Good. Then take out the contract from the transaction just now. Every business transaction of the Ji family's blacksmithing workshop had to be recorded in the accounts. Any transaction that was worth more than 10,000 taels of silver required a contract from the workshop owner. Especially that box of profound weapons and treasured swords. Its value exceeded 1 million taels of silver, and it required the patriarch or elder to personally sign a contract. When Xu Zifeng heard the two words hand contract, his face immediately became even more unsightly. His eyes evaded Ji Tianxing's gaze, not daring to meet his eyes. Ji Tianxing was even more convinced that there was something wrong with this deal, and he shouted in a dignified tone, Xu Zifeng, this young master knows that you don't have the guts to do such a thing. Speak. Who instigated you? A hint of hesitation flashed in Xu Zifeng's eyes. After exchanging glances with the black-clothed young man, he gritted his teeth and made up his mind. When he raised his head to look at Ji Tianxing again, his face was filled with a sinister sneer. Young master, since you've already found out, then don't blame me for being ruthless. You're the one who forced me to do this. Kill him. Xu Zifeng shouted at the black-clothed young man and leaped towards Ji Tianxing. His hands were like the claws of an eagle as he tried to grab Ji Tianxing's head and neck. He was at the second level of the true energy realm. In his opinion, even without a weapon, he could easily kill Ji Tianxing, who was at the body refining realm. The black-clothed young man was also at the first level of the true energy realm. His fists flashed with a faint red light as he viciously smashed towards Ji Tianxing's chest. You're courting death. Ji Tianxing shouted with a cold expression and instantly drew his blood dragon sword to meet the attack. Swoosh! He used all his strength to slash with his sword and forced the murderous Xu Zifeng to retreat. Seeing the black-clothed young man aggressively charging towards him, he changed his steps and retreated sideways, dodging the black-clothed young man's fists. When the black-clothed young man brushed past him, he unhesitatingly struck out with his palm and activated the sword energy in the Huizong meridian on his arm. Bang! Ji Tianxing's palm hit the black-clothed young man's back. The sword energy shot out from his palm and drilled into the black-clothed young man's body. Suddenly, the black-clothed young man staggered forward for 6 steps before stopping. When he turned around and wanted to pounce on He Wuhan, his face was already pale. Blood dripped from the corner of his mouth and his strength was quickly dissipating. You. The black-clothed young man glared at Ji Tianxing with an expression of disbelief, but he could not say a word. His body swayed as he moved his feet. Unable to support himself any longer, he fell to the grass with a plop and gradually died. Xu Zifeng saw with his own eyes that the black-clothed young man was killed by Ji Tianxing with a single palm strike. His face was full of surprise and the speed of his fists slowed down a bit. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Ji Tianxing repeatedly waved his blood dragon sword, thrusting a few sword lights at him, aiming at his face, throat, and chest. Xu Zifeng was forced into a fluster and could only retreat to dodge. After 7 moves, he revealed a flaw in his panic and was immediately stabbed in the shoulder by Ji Tianxing. The indestructible blood dragon sword directly pierced a bloody hole in his shoulder, revealing his white shoulder bone. Xu Zifeng let out a mournful scream. His face was pale and his forehead was covered in cold sweat. Although he did not dare to believe it, he had to accept the fact that Ji Tianxing's strength was definitely not the rumored body refining stage. It was very likely that he had recovered to the true element stage. Thinking of this, Xu Zifeng no longer had a trace of fighting spirit. He jumped back 2 feet and fled down the mountain while holding his shoulder. But before he could escape 10 feet, Ji Tianxing caught up with him. Where do you think you're going? Ji Tianxing roared angrily and rushed behind Xu Zifeng like a gust of wind. With a shake of his hand, he stabbed Xu Zifeng's back and fell to the ground on the spot. Before Xu Zifeng could struggle to get up, Ji Tianxing stepped on his shoulder, stomped him to the ground, and pressed the blood dragon sword against his neck. Speak. Who ordered you to do this? Xu Zifeng was pressed on the grass and could not move. He knew that he could not escape this calamity and actually revealed a sinister sneer. He. I didn't expect young Master Ji to hide so deeply. However, you want to force clues from me? In your next life. As he spoke, his breath became weaker and weaker, and dark red blood kept flowing out of his mouth and nose. After a short while, he closed his eyes and no longer made a sound. Ji Tianxing hurriedly turned him over and checked his pulse, only to find that he had shattered his heart meridians and committed suicide. Damn it! He would rather die than let go. Who made him a suicide warrior and did not care about his life? Ji Tianxing muttered to himself as he put away the blood dragon sword with a gloomy expression. Xu Zifeng's suicide caused a layer of haze to shroud his heart, and he increasingly felt that this matter was of great importance. If this matter was directly related to his second uncle, it might endanger the Ji family's foundation. He rummaged through Xu Zifeng and the black-clothed youth's corpses to see if he could find any clues. Unfortunately, the 2 of them only had some broken silver and miscellaneous items on them. There were no useful clues. Ji Tianxing sighed helplessly and could only leave the ruined temple and go down the mountain. After 15 minutes, when he reached the foot of the mountain, 2 figures walked out of the ruined temple. The leader was a youth in a green robe. He was tall and handsome, and his temperament was extraordinary. It was Ji Hao. The middle-aged man behind him was dressed as a guard. He wore black leather armor and carried a sword. The middle-aged man glanced at the two corpses not far away and said with a gloomy expression, "Young Master How, this matter has been discovered by young Master G. What should we do? Should we?" As he spoke, he made a throat-slitting gesture. Ji Hao frowned and said with a gloomy expression, "If we make a move, no matter how covert it is, there will be traces left behind. It is far better to kill with a borrowed knife. This is Yunju, the Jiyu family's territory. Although Yunju provincial governor Jiyu Shiji is far away in the imperial city, I remember that Jiyu Hao's birth mother lives in Hanging Cloud City, 100 miles away. Let the Jiyu family know that Ji Tianxing has come to Tai Town and wants to enter the mountain to find the Red Star Flower. I believe that Jiyu Hao's mother will not let go of this opportunity to avenge her son. Also, remember to remind the Jiyu family that Ji Tianxing's strength seems to have recovered to the true energy boundary." Chapter 29. When Ji Tianxing returned to the Laifu Inn, all the guests were still asleep. Only the shopkeeper and servants were busy. He returned to his room and sat cross-legged on the bed to cultivate. He had used up a strand of sword qi to kill Shu Zifeng's companion, so he had to replenish it as soon as possible. As for Shu Zifeng's private trade, he had decided to investigate and find out who the mastermind was. He had a strong premonition that this matter was related to his second uncle. However, he was in Tai Town and could not investigate this matter. He could only return to the imperial city and make further plans. After a while, he entered a state of cultivation and absorbed the qi of heaven and earth to condense sword qi. Time passed quickly, and when it was noon, the inn became lively again. There was a hubbub of voices, and it was clamorous and noisy. Ji Tianxing cultivated all the way until dusk. Not only did he condense another strand of sword qi, but he also cultivated the 12 strands of sword qi to be more solid and powerful. After dinner, he went to bed early to rest. However, in the latter half of the night, when he was sleeping soundly, he suddenly heard a catcher sound from outside the window. He immediately woke up and subconsciously reached for the blood dragon sword beside the bed. When he held the blood dragon sword and opened his eyes, he saw that the window was wide open. A black figure jumped up from the treetops outside the window and landed in the room. He rolled on the ground and pounced toward the bed. This person's movements were very agile and vigorous. His speed was extremely fast. He held a treasured sword in his hand that was emitting cold light in all directions and fiercely stabbed towards Ji Tianxing. Moreover, his palm and sword were shining with a faint yellow true essence light. He was obviously a true element boundary martial artist. This sword was fast and ruthless. If Ji Tianxing was still asleep, he would have been stabbed to death on the spot. At this critical moment, Ji Tianxing did not have time to think. He subconsciously waved the blood dragon sword to block. Clang! There was a sound of metal colliding. The blood dragon sword blocked the opponent's attack but was shaken by the huge force. Ji Tianxing was also pushed back by the huge force and almost hit the wall of the bed. He rolled to the bottom of the bed and swung his sword at the assassin. The black-clothed assassin clearly hadn't expected that he would wake up from his stupor. His sword strike, which he thought would surely kill him, had been blocked. He couldn't help but let out a soft cry of surprise. Seeing the blood dragon sword slashing towards him, his body curled up strangely. After dodging the blood dragon sword, he charged towards Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing was enveloped by the 3 sword lights. He felt a chill run down his spine. He instantly determined that the assassin's strength was at least at the 3rd level of the true energy realm, and he was no match for him. At this critical moment, he could only wave his sword with all his might to block the attack. Ding ding dang 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 sounds of collision rang out again. He was once again forced back 5 steps and knocked over a vase that was half a man's height. The vase was smashed into smithereens, and the sound of shattering spread throughout the inn, waking up many guests. Taking advantage of Ji Tianxing's unsteady footsteps, the assassin in black was overjoyed and pounced over, brandishing his sword to stab Ji Tianxing's throat. In a moment of desperation, Ji Tianxing subconsciously struck out a palm at the black-clothed assassin, releasing a streak of sword qi. Swish! The two of them were too close, and the black-clothed assassin was caught off guard. His left eye was pierced by the sword chi. Ah! The black-clothed assassin let out a blood-curdling scream. He immediately withdrew his sword and retreated 2 steps. He covered his bloody eyes with his hands, and his entire body trembled in pain. Ji Tianxing thought to himself, good chance. He immediately counterattacked, and once again struck out a palm at the black-clothed assassin's chest, releasing another streak of sword chi. Even though the black-clothed assassin was blind in one eye, his strength was indeed powerful. At this critical moment, he was still able to maintain his calm, and brandished his sword with all his might, releasing 2 streaks of dazzling sword chi. Dang! Ji Tianxing's sword chi was shattered by the treasured sword. Bastard, go to hell! The black-clothed assassin angrily roared. His strength and speed suddenly doubled. He brandished his sword with all his might, releasing 6 streaks of dazzling cold light, enveloping Ji Tianxing's vital points. Obviously, he had used all his strength, and wanted to kill Ji Tianxing on the spot, and then escape far away. Ji Tianxing was forced to retreat. After retreating 3 steps, his back hit the wall. He had no way to retreat. His front and sides were blocked by the dazzling sword chi, and there was nowhere to hide. Seeing that his vital points were about to be pierced by the sword chi, blood splattering everywhere. At this moment of life and death, he still maintained a calm mind, and his eyes stared at the incoming sword chi. If you want me to die, don't even think about living. Instead of retreating, he advanced and rushed toward the black-clothed assassin as if he was courting death. He brandished his sword with his right hand, releasing a streak of sword chi to block the assassin's sword chi, and his left hand fiercely slapped toward the assassin's head. Dang, 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 dang. After the 2 swords clashed 4 times, the blood dragon sword was finally sent flying, and it smashed into the wall behind Ji Tianxing. His left shoulder and right abdomen were also hit by the sword chi, and there was a finger-long cut on them. Blood immediately gushed out. At the same time, his left palm also hit the black-clothed assassin's head. Bang! With a muffled sound, the sword chi from the Yangkai acupoint on his wrist shot out and silently drilled into the black-clothed assassin's head. The black-clothed assassin immediately let out a muffled groan. He threw away his sword, covered his bleeding head with both hands, and staggered back. You actually... He stared at Ji Tianxing, and his blood-covered face was full of horror. Unfortunately, he didn't even finish his sentence before his vitality was cut off, and he fell to the ground. Ji Tianxing had released 3 sword chis in a row, and his body was very weak. He endured his injuries and picked up the blood dragon sword from the corner of the wall. He cut a few strips of cloth from his robe and bandaged the wounds on his left shoulder and right abdomen. At this moment, the guests in the inn were alarmed, and they all opened their doors and windows to look outside. A few warriors rushed up to the 3rd floor with swords and sabers, and arrived at the door of Ji Tianxing's room. The door was kicked open with a bang. The warrior who rushed into the room first was a young man wearing brown leather armor and holding a long saber. Ji Tianxing raised his head to look at this person, and he recognized him as the leader of the warriors' adventurer group. The 5 martial artists following closely behind him were all his subordinates. A group of people poured into the room, and 2 of them were holding oil lamps in their hands. When everyone saw the injured Ji Tianxing and the body of the black-clothed assassin lying on the ground, they immediately understood what was going on. Fortunately, they had all heard the noise and came to check the situation. They had no malice toward Ji Tianxing. "Brother, are you okay? Do you need help?" The leader of the warriors' adventurer group walked up to Ji Tianxing, grinned, and asked in a friendly manner. Ji Tianxing shook his head and continued to bandage his wounds. The leader of the warriors' adventurer group withdrew his gaze and checked the body of the black-clothed assassin with an oil lamp. He found a purse and a badge on the body. He picked up the badge and observed it for a moment. Suddenly, his expression changed, and he whispered to Ji Tianxing, "Brother, this assassin is from the blood-clothed tower. It seems that you're in big trouble." Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows and asked in confusion, "What do you mean?" The leader of the warriors' adventurer group moved closer and said in a low voice, "Brother, the blood-clothed tower is the #1 assassin organization in Yunju. They have many fierce assassins under their command. The blood-clothed tower's assassination success rate is very high, and there are few cases of failure. They will not give up until they achieve their goal. However, the blood-clothed tower's commission is very expensive, and ordinary forces can't hire them. It seems that you've offended a big force. I'm afraid you can't stay in Tay Town any longer. Run for your life as soon as possible. Brothers, please add and recommend me. Chapter 30. Ji Tianxing nodded to show that he understood and thanked the head of the warriors for his kind reminder. The head of the warriors did not say much. He waved his hand and left the room with his subordinates and went downstairs. Ji Tianxing could see that the famous warriors' adventurer group in Yunju was also very afraid of the blood-clothed tower and did not dare to get involved in this matter. In fact, even if the head of the warriors' adventurer group had not reminded him about the blood-clothed tower, he had decided to leave the inn. At present, his identity had been exposed. Those forces that wanted to kill him would definitely attack him one after another. In 2 days, the red star flower will bloom. I'll heal here tonight. Tomorrow morning, I'll leave Tay Town and enter the Tay Mountains as soon as possible. Ji Tianxing had a plan in mind. He took out the powder from his bag to stop the bleeding and bandaged the wound. After treating the wound, he closed the door and window and sat on the bed to cultivate and continue to condense the sword qi. As for the body of the blood-clothed tower assassin, he did not bother to deal with it and just let it lie on the ground. 3 hours later, the sky outside the window was bright. Ji Tianxing condensed a new sword qi and stored it in the Yangkai acupoint on his wrist. At present, he only had 10 sword qi in his body. His strength was 20% lower than before. But he did not care so much and did not have time to continue condensing the sword qi. Before the guests in the inn woke up, he took the bag and the blood dragon sword and quietly left the Laifu Inn. The Tay Mountains were located in the south of the town. The entrance was a deep canyon. After Ji Tianxing left the town, he quickly rushed to the entrance of the Tay Mountains. For him, the best choice at present was to escape into the Tay Mountains. Even if there were many fierce beasts and monsters in the mountains, it was safer than staying in Tay Town. Anyway, the Tay Mountains were vast and boundless, with dense vegetation and deep forests. If the blood-clothed tower assassins wanted to find him, it would be like looking for a needle in a haystack. 4 hours later, Ji Tianxing entered the canyon and rushed along the deep canyon to the depths of the mountains. The moment he entered the Taiyi mountain range, he could clearly feel that the moist air contained dense heaven-earth essence qi, causing his pores to open up. The jungles on both sides of the canyon were verdant and lush. As far as the eye could see, there were towering trees. The ground was also covered with dense thorns, flowers, and other vegetation. Ji Tianxing walked in the canyon, feeling the gentle breeze blowing against his face. Hearing the cries of birds and beasts coming from the forest on both sides, he felt relaxed. Even though the Taiyi mountain range is dangerous, it's a treasured place that's filled with the energy of the heavens and the earth. If I cultivate here all year round, I'll definitely be able to obtain twice the results with half the effort and swiftly improve my strength. We've only just entered the mountain range, and it's already so refreshing. Wouldn't it be even more delightful if we were to find the spirit veins in the mountain range? Thinking of this, he took out an iron box from his bosom and took out the psychic star chart. The pointer on the psychic star chart swayed gently, and after swaying back and forth a few times, it steadily pointed straight ahead. Ji Tianxing understood that the psychic star chart pointed in the direction of the spirit veins where the heaven-earth essence qi gathered. Most of the rare natural treasures grew near the spirit veins where the heaven-earth essence qi gathered. So he sped up and rushed in the direction pointed by the psychic star chart. In the afternoon, Ji Tianxing finally walked out of the canyon and climbed a mountain that was thousands of feet high. It was the hottest time of the day, and the scorching sun high in the sky was particularly dazzling. However, Ji Tianxing did not feel hot as he walked through the jungles on the top of the mountain. Instead, it was very cool and comfortable. Even if he did not look at the psychic star chart, he could clearly feel that the heaven-earth essence qi on this mountain was abundant, which was very suitable for cultivation. However, this was not the real spirit veins. Ji Tianxing took out some dry food from the package and ate 2 mouthfuls casually. After resting for a while, he continued to climb the mountains and rushed to the depths of the mountain range. As time went by, 4 hours passed quickly. In the evening, Ji Tianxing had climbed over 3 mountains in a row and climbed up an even more majestic giant mountain. This giant mountain was about 2,000 feet high, and the top of the mountain was shrouded in white clouds and thick fog, which did not dissipate even when the mountain wind blew. Seeing that the sun was about to set, Ji Tianxing stayed halfway up the mountain and prepared to spend the night on this giant mountain. According to the instructions of the psychic star chart, this giant mountain was a treasure land where the heaven-earth essence qi gathered, and it was easy to find rare herbs and exotic flowers and fruits. Moreover, it was extremely dangerous to walk in the mountain range at night. A martial artist who had the heaven-earth essence qi in his body was like a bright lamp in the dark night, and would definitely attract the besiegement of countless fierce beasts and monstrous beasts. Before it got dark, Ji Tianxing found a relatively dry cave halfway up the mountain. He chopped a few tree trunks and moved a few big stones to block the entrance of the cave, and then sat down in the cave to cultivate. Night fell, and the sky was filled with stars, but the mountain was so dark that one couldn't even see one's own fingers. From the mountains and forests in all directions, there were frightening roars of monstrous beasts, which made one's hair stand on end. Ji Tianxing concentrated on condensing sword qi, and after cultivating for an hour, he found that the heaven-earth essence qi on this mountain was abundant. He could clearly feel that the endless heaven-earth essence qi was like a tide, surging from all directions and gathering in his body. The effect of cultivating in this mountain was twice as good as cultivating in the secret room of the Ji mansion. In the past, when he cultivated in the secret room of the Ji mansion, he needed 6 hours to condense sword qi. However, in this simple and crude cave, he only used 4 hours to condense a strand of sword qi. 8 hours later, in the middle of the night, he successfully condensed 2 sword qi, and recovered the strength of 12 sword qi. He stopped cultivating, hugged the blood dragon sword in his arms, and leaned against the cave wall to rest, waiting for dawn to come. But the terrifying roars of monstrous beasts kept coming from all directions, making him unable to sleep. His nerves were tense, and he did not dare to let down his guard. Occasionally, there would be all kinds of muffled sounds, as if there were huge monstrous beasts fighting each other. He even felt the ground shake a few times, as if there were huge monstrous beasts running in the mountain. Ji Tianxing originally thought that the monstrous beasts would gradually calm down. But he did not expect that the monstrous beasts' roars coming from all directions would become denser, and all kinds of loud noises would become closer. He finally realized that something was wrong, and clenched the blood dragon sword with both hands, listening to the movements outside the cave. Suddenly, a pair of walnut-sized scarlet eyes appeared in the darkness outside the cave. An extremely dangerous aura came, accompanied by a thick smell of blood. Ji Tianxing looked out through the crack in the cave, and vaguely saw a fiery red monstrous beast that looked like a tiger squatting outside the cave, staring at the cave entrance. Oh no! That monstrous beast found me. Chapter 31. At that moment, Ji Tianxing's nerves were stretched taut as cold sweat broke out on his back. He did not expect that a few large rocks and tree trunks would be able to block the entrance of the cave and the fiery red demonic beast outside. But he was trapped in the cave and had nowhere to run. He did not even have a chance to fight back. At this moment of life and death, the only thing he could do was to hold his breath and not make a sound. But he had underestimated the intelligence of the demonic beast. The fiery red demonic beast squatted outside the cave for about half an hour before it could no longer suppress its bloodthirsty desire. It slowly arched its body towards the entrance of the cave and stretched out its large claws. It easily pushed aside a few large rocks and rolled them into the bushes. Even the crisscrossing tree trunks blocking the entrance of the cave were easily pushed aside by its large claws. With the entrance of the cave unblocked, Ji Tianxing and the fiery red demonic beast stared at each other. Only now did Ji Tianxing see clearly that this fiery red demonic beast was 3 meters long. Its body was covered in red fur and its large mouth revealed 2 chopstick-long fangs. It's actually a flaming tiger, a mid-tier demonic beast. Ji Tianxing's body stiffened, his eyes filled with fear and anxiety. In this world, demonic beasts were also divided into strong and weak demonic beasts. Ordinary low-tier demonic beasts had the combat strength of a refinement realm martial artist and were common in large numbers. A mid-tier demonic beast's combat strength was basically the same as a true energy realm martial artist and could use the yuan qi of heaven and earth to attack. A high-tier demonic beast's combat strength was equivalent to a mystic comprehending realm martial artist. As for the stronger demonic beasts, they had already formed their demonic core and were powerful martial artists. Their strength was equivalent to a origin core martial artist. Ji Tianxing could clearly feel that this flaming tiger's strength was at least at the 5th level of the true energy realm. Looking at the flaming tiger, his expression was grave as he muttered to himself, "I'm really unlucky to encounter a mid-tier demonic beast on my first day in the mountain. This is a flaming tiger comparable to the 5th level of the true energy realm. If I'm not careful, I'll lose my life." The flaming tiger's scarlet eyes stared at him, revealing a bloodthirsty look as saliva dripped from its mouth. It approached the cave entrance step by step and stretched out its claws to grab Ji Tianxing out of the cave. The cave was too small and Ji Tianxing had nowhere to hide. At this critical moment, he gritted his teeth and made up his mind. With a low shout, he brandished his sword and rushed out. "Damned beast, get out of the way." The blood dragon sword was unsheathed and drew a cold light in the night sky, ruthlessly slashing at the flaming tiger's claws. The flaming tiger was very vigilant. It wasn't in a hurry to kill Ji Tianxing with all its strength. It immediately withdrew its claws. Using the flaming tiger's claws, the flaming tiger's flaming tiger, the flaming tiger, the flaming tiger. The flaming tiger let out 2 angry growls and chased after him like an arrow leaving the bow. The mountain was as dark as ink at night. It was impossible to tell north from south. Ji Tianxing was in a hurry to escape. He didn't care if the direction was right or wrong. He rushed into the forest ahead. Just as he entered the forest, the flaming tiger followed closely and crashed into a thick tree with a bang. The flaming tiger's speed slowed down a bit, and the big tree was also broken on the spot. Crash! It fell down in the forest. Ji Tianxing was so shocked that his eyelids twitched. He roared in his heart, "What a terrifying strength! If I was hit by the flaming tiger, wouldn't I be smashed to pieces?" Thinking of this, he ran even faster, shuttling through the forest as fast as the wind. No matter how the thorns and branches hit his body and cut him, he didn't care at all. However, the flaming tiger was the overlord of the mountain. It was extremely fast in the forest and quickly closed the distance between them. When the flaming tiger was 6 feet behind him, it suddenly jumped up and pounced on him. At the critical moment, Ji Tianxing jumped more than 10 feet into the air and landed on the top of a tree. He narrowly avoided the disaster. Bang! The flaming tiger missed its target, and its front paws smashed into the ground, creating a crater that was more than a foot deep. Dust and bits of grass flew all over the place. Ji Tianxing continued to run. He was out of breath. His face was pale as he gasped for breath. His clothes were soaked. After 20 breaths, he ran for 2 miles but still couldn't shake off the flaming tiger. Not only that, something even more terrifying happened. The other demon beasts in the forest were alarmed and chased after him. A wind wolf and 2 fire bears also joined the team and chased after the flaming tiger. "A flaming tiger almost took my life. Now there are 3 mid-level demon beasts. God, can't you give me a way out?" Ji Tianxing roared with grief and indignation. His heart was shrouded in a layer of despair. But at this moment, he suddenly found that the flaming tiger slowed down. Not only that, but the wind wolf and the 2 fire bears also slowed down. Ji Tianxing frowned in confusion. He thought to himself, "What's going on? A mid-level demon beast like the flaming tiger can't be exhausted so quickly, right?" He looked at the 4 demon beasts a few more times and found that not only did they slow down, but they were also staring at the forest in front of him. They seemed to be hesitating and afraid. That's right, it was fear. Ji Tianxing could see that the eyes of the 4 demon beasts were filled with fear. It seemed that they didn't dare to approach the dark forest in front of them. He looked at the forest in front of him in confusion. He looked at it a few times but couldn't find any clues. Under the curtain of night, the forest was pitch black and silent. The intelligence of mid-level demon beasts like the flaming tiger and the wind wolf is only equivalent to a 3-year-old human child. Something that can make them feel fear must be something that they remember deeply. But that forest looks very ordinary. Why would it make the 4 demon beasts feel fear? Ji Tianxing was puzzled. As he fled towards the forest, he glanced around. At this time, he suddenly realized that he didn't recognize the direction in his panic. He actually ran from the middle of the mountain to the peak. He continued to run towards the dark forest and looked back at the 4 demon beasts behind him. Although the flaming tiger and the wind wolf were drooling over him, their chasing speed was getting slower and slower. When he ran to the edge of the dark forest, the 4 demon beasts actually stopped chasing him. They stopped about 30 meters away from him. A woo! Roar! The 4 demon beasts stared at him and let out a low roar filled with unwillingness. But in the end, they didn't dare to take another step. It seems that they really are afraid of this forest. Phew! I'm finally saved. Ji Tianxing's heart was finally relieved. He let out a long breath. However, he didn't stay in the same place. He turned around and ran into the forest to avoid attracting more demon beasts. If by any chance some demon beasts weren't afraid of this forest and rushed over to attack him, then he would be dead for sure. Chapter 32. Ji Tianxing walked through the dark forest for a while and found that something was wrong. From the outside, it looked like an ordinary forest. But after entering the forest, he found that there were only towering trees in the forest. There were no thorns or bushes. There were no weeds or flowers growing on the ground. It was all hard dark brown soil and strange craggy boulders. Between the many craggy boulders, there were dark holes. He didn't know how deep they were, or what was hiding inside. Most importantly, there were no traces or sounds of demon beasts in this forest. There were no birds or even the sounds of insects. It was too quiet. The huge forest was completely silent, as if there were no living things in it. Ji Tianxing kept his guard up. While walking through the forest, he looked around. He recalled the fearful eyes of the 4 demon beasts and suddenly guessed the reason why they were afraid of this forest. This forest is so quiet. I'm afraid there is something strange. At this moment, not far behind him, under a craggy boulder, an icy blue light suddenly lit up. It was a beam of ice blue light that was as thick as an arm. It came out from the dark hole under the huge rock and silently reached behind Ji Tianxing like a tentacle. Before he could react, the icy blue light wrapped around him and wrapped around his body at an incredible speed, wrapping him up like a dumpling. What the hell is this? Ji Tianxing was shocked. He subconsciously let out a low shout and struggled with all his might. But the icy blue light was indestructible, and its strength was terrifying. He couldn't break free at all. Swish! The icy blue light pulled him like a tentacle and dragged him into the dark hole under the boulder. Ji Tianxing only felt his vision turn black. He fell into a dark bottomless abyss and fell down at an extremely fast speed. After a few breaths, but it felt like a few months, his falling speed finally slowed down. Vaguely, he seemed to see a layer of icy blue bubbles appear under his feet. Then he passed through the layer of huge bubbles and entered a vast and empty cave. Buzz! Just as he was about to hit the ground, the icy blue brilliance around him suddenly tightened and hung him in the air. It finally stopped. If you don't stop, I'll fall to the ground and die. Ji Tianxing looked at the rocky ground not far from his feet and finally breathed a sigh of relief. He calmed down and turned his neck to look around. This was a dimly lit cave that seemed to have been artificially excavated. It was about the size of the Ji mansion. Even if it could accommodate over 10,000 people, it wouldn't feel crowded. The ground of the cave was made of dark brown rocks. It was rough and uneven, and there were large protrusions of sharp edges in many places. The brown walls of the cave were relatively flat, and there were glimmers of light on the walls, like the light of some ores or gems. As for the top of the cave, Ji Tianxing looked up and was stunned. He saw that in the dark sky above his head, there was a huge ice blue demonic beast. It was a huge beast that was over 100 zhong long. Its whole body was covered in icy blue fur, and it looked like a fox. But that fox was as big as a palace. Its whole body was icy blue, and it had 12 furry tails. When Ji Tianxing saw Yun Yaro's spirit crane, he was already surprised and shocked. But now, it seemed that the spirit crane was simply a pitiful little thing compared to the ice blue fox above his head. Is this a high-level demonic beast? Or a big demonic beast that has condensed a demonic core? Could it be the legendary king of demonic beasts, the nine-tailed demonic fox? But it has 12 tails. Ji Tianxing tried his best to remain calm and secretly speculated. If it wasn't for the constant pain from the wounds on his body that let him know that everything in front of him was real, he would have suspected that he was dreaming. Now he finally understood why the 4 demonic beasts didn't dare to approach the forest on the mountain peak. It turned out that there was a huge cave hidden here, and in the cave, there was a shocking and terrifying giant beast. As Ji Tianxing stared at the giant ice blue fox, the giant ice blue fox was also looking at him from above. Ji Tianxing could clearly see that in the giant ice blue fox's huge silver eyes, there was a mocking sneer that only humans could have. "Hehe, my food, have you seen enough?" Suddenly, the giant ice blue fox opened its mouth to speak. Its tone was as mocking as its eyes. Ji Tianxing was dumbfounded. He cried out subconsciously, You can speak human language?" The giant ice blue fox smiled and squinted its eyes. Its eyes were long and narrow like willow leaves, and there was a sense of cunning. "With my intelligence and strength, what's so strange about me being able to speak human language?" Ji Tianxing suppressed the shock in his heart and quickly asked, "Legend says that the king of demonic beasts, the nine-tailed demonic fox, can speak human language, and can even transform into a human form to charm humans. Are you the legendary nine-tailed demonic fox?" "Nine-tailed demonic fox." The giant ice blue fox curled its lips and said in a disdainful tone, "Phut! How can such a low-level demonic beast be compared to me?" Ji Tianxing was silent, and his heart was heavy. He thought to himself, the legendary demonic fox's strength is comparable to a master of the sky origin stage. Is this ice fox beyond the demonic fox's level? I don't know if I'm too lucky or too unlucky. I can't believe I've met such a legendary top master. At this moment, the giant ice blue fox slowly twisted its body, opened a pair of ice blue wings hidden under its belly, and flew down from the sky. "My prey, I haven't tasted human flesh for many years. Now, you have to open your heart and happily welcome my taste." This is your honor, you should be proud." Ji Tianxing's face suddenly changed, and he cursed in his heart, "Is this demon crazy? You're going to eat me, and I'm still happy. But, isn't this demonic beast a fox? Why does it have wings like a bird? I've never heard of such a weird-looking demonic beast." The giant ice blue fox opened its bloody mouth, and was getting closer and closer to Ji Tianxing. It looked like it was going to swallow him in one gulp. In a hurry, Ji Tianxing could only find a lame excuse. "Hey! You can't eat me." As expected, the giant ice blue fox stopped, and asked with a smile, "Why?" Ji Tianxing pretended to be calm and said, I haven't taken a shower yet. I'm dirty and smelly, and I haven't changed my clothes and socks for many days." After saying that, he stole a glance at the giant ice blue fox's reaction, and asked worriedly, "Your taste can't be that bad, right?" Chapter 33. The giant ice blue fox seemed to be moved by Ji Tianxing's words and nodded in agreement. "Yuan, you're right. If the food isn't clean enough, it will affect my appetite." After speaking, it waved its front claws and shot out an ice blue light beam. The pillar of light immediately turned into a surging stream of water, swirling around Ji Tianxing and washing him away. Swish, swish, swish. In the blink of an eye, Ji Tianxing was washed from head to toe by the bone-chilling water. The dust and blood on his body all disappeared. The giant ice blue fox nodded in satisfaction and said with a smile, "Yuan, now that it's clean, I'm going to enjoy the food." Ji Tianxing was speechless and his heart was filled with helplessness. In front of this terrifyingly strong demon king, even if he calmly thought of a way to stall for time, there was no chance of escaping. Since it was like this, he could only use all his strength and desperately struggle. He clenched his teeth and used all his strength, causing his muscles to bulge and his bones to make catcha-catcha sounds. He could even clearly hear his own heartbeat, and the essence in his body was like a flood, making a dull sound. A martial artist at the 9th level of the body refinement realm, when using all his strength, could easily lift a 1,000-pound copper cauldron. Ji Tianxing's physical strength was twice as strong as a normal martial artist at the 9th level of the body refinement realm. He had at least 2,000 pounds of strength. However, the ice blue light beam that wrapped around his body was as tough as a spirit snake and could not be shaken at all. The giant ice blue fox saw that he was desperately struggling and was not in a hurry to eat him. It smiled and said, "My food, use all your strength to struggle. The more you struggle, the hotter your blood will be and the more essence in your body will be. I can also taste even more plump and tender flesh. That's a delicacy. I like to see my prey tenaciously struggle and then be swallowed into my stomach in despair." Hey! The giant ice blue fox's smile was very cunning. Its eyes stared at Ji Tianxing as if it was enjoying and looking forward to it. Ji Tianxing's heart was filled with grief and anger, but he clenched his teeth and did not make a sound. He used all his strength to struggle. His body began to distort, and his muscles and bones began to expand. Clearly, his strength had reached its limit. The icy blue light pillar finally loosened a little as it slowly rotated. The giant ice blue fox raised its eyebrows and said in a playful tone, "Hey, I didn't expect you to be so capable. I'll give you a chance to live. If you can break free, I'll spare your life. If you can't break free, then you can only be obediently eaten by me." Ji Tianxing saw a glimmer of hope for survival. He desperately erupted with an even more violent power, and his skin turned crimson red. Moreover, in order to increase his explosive power, he did not hesitate to use the 12 strands of sword qi in his body. Buzz! Amidst the buzzing of the vibrating sword qi, all 12 sword qis flew out of his body and surrounded him. Swish! Swish! The 12 golden sword qis spun rapidly, shining with a bright golden light and producing a series of air-piercing sounds. At this critical moment of life and death, Ji Tianxing's endless potential was stimulated. Only then did he realize that the sword qi in his body could be manipulated in this way. He calmly controlled the 12 streaks of sword qi and rotated them to cut the icy blue light pillar around his body. Ding! Ding! Dang! Dang! However, when the 12 streaks of sword qi hit the icy blue light pillar, there was a series of crisp sounds, but there was no effect. The icy blue light pillar was indestructible. No matter how sharp the sword qi was, it could not be shaken. After all, Ji Tianxing's ability was far inferior to the giant ice blue fox's. The difference in power level was like heaven and earth. In a short period of time, Ji Tianxing's mind could not take it anymore. It was difficult for him to control the 12 streaks of sword qi. Swish! Swish! The 12 streaks of sword qi went back into his body and hid in the 12 acupuncture points. Ji Tianxing's strength and mind were both exhausted. He only felt that his vision was turning black, and his consciousness was becoming blurry. Am I going to die here today and be eaten by this damned fox? I can't accept this. I haven't found the red star flower, and I still have to take my revenge. Ji Tianxing was filled with unwillingness. Finally, he closed his eyes and fainted. The giant ice blue fox revealed a disappointed expression and muttered to itself, "Sigh. Is this all you've got? Seems like I've overestimated you." Then, it opened its sharp mouth and revealed 2 rows of sharp fangs. It bit down on Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing, who was unconscious, did not feel anything. He was about to be swallowed by the giant ice blue fox. However, at this critical moment, a dark ball of light appeared in his energy center in his abdomen, emitting a cold death aura. Swish! The dark ball of light expanded 10,000 times in an instant, becoming a black hole the size of a palace and enveloping the giant ice blue fox. The black hole emitted a cold death aura and an extremely powerful and mysterious aura. The giant ice blue fox was so frightened that its expression changed drastically. Its silver eyes were filled with fear. What is this? It could not help but scream. Instinctively, it retreated, trying to get away from the mysterious black hole. However, the black light in the black hole spun rapidly, emitting a terrifying devouring power that enveloped the giant ice blue fox. The giant ice blue fox could not move. Its eyes were filled with fear as it floated in the air. It could only endure the devouring power in despair. Countless rays of ice blue light flew out of its body and flew toward the black hole like a dense rain of arrows. They were all swallowed by the black vortex. The giant ice blue fox immediately felt that the majestic power in its body was quickly draining away, and its body was gradually shrinking. That black hole. It wants to devour my power. Ah. No. D***mn bastard. How can this be? The giant ice blue fox was angry and frightened. It glared at Ji Tianxing with fire in its eyes. It hated him to the core. However, Ji Tianxing was unconscious. He floated in the air without feeling anything and was unaware of all this. The giant ice blue fox's power was draining faster and faster, and its body was shrinking at a speed visible to the naked eye. After an hour, 40% of its power had been drained away, and its body had shrunk by half. After 2 hours, 80% of its power had been drained away, and its body had shrunk to the size of a room. The black hole was still enveloping it, and it continued to absorb its power, causing its body to shrink even further. Not only that, the giant ice blue fox was horrified to find that the mysterious black hole was not only devouring its power, but it was also devouring the chi of heaven and earth in the cave. The terrifying devouring power caused a strong wind to blow in the huge cave, and it swept through the cave walls and the ground. There were many gems on the cave walls that contained the chi of heaven and earth. The chi of heaven and earth in the gems had been completely devoured by the black hole, and the sparkling gems had become useless stones. Something even more terrifying happened. The cave began to shake violently. Cracks began to appear on the walls of the cave, and countless rocks began to roll down. The ice blue bubble that enveloped the entire cave began to shake violently, and cracks appeared on it. Catcher, catcher, the sound of something breaking could be heard. Rumble, 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 rumble. The loud sound reverberated in the cave. The entire mountain started to shake. The earth quaked and the mountains swayed. The giant ice blue fox was terrified to the extreme. How can this be? What is that black hole? Could it be that the black hole is going to destroy the barrier set up by that person? Chapter 34. After an unknown period of time, Ji Tianxing slowly woke up. He only felt that the light was a little dazzling, so he subconsciously reached out to rub his eyes. The next moment, he suddenly woke up and sat up from the ground with a swish. He looked up and saw a scorching sun in the sky, sprinkling down scorching sunlight. It's already noon. Wasn't I trapped in the cave? He turned his head to look around in surprise. When he saw the surroundings clearly, he couldn't help but be stunned. He was still in the huge and spacious cave, but the cave had already collapsed and shattered. There were huge cracks and ravines everywhere on the ground, and there were many huge pieces of gravel scattered around. The surrounding cave walls had collapsed, revealing huge cracks. Faint light shone in from the cracks. Not far from him, there was a huge crack that was dozens of feet wide, like a canyon. Ji Tianxing's gaze passed through the canyon and could clearly see a green mountain on the opposite side. What happened? Why did this cave collapse? He got up from the ground and stretched his sore neck and body while observing the situation around him. This cave seems to be inside the mountain. It's at least 3,000 feet from the mountain peak. It's difficult for me to climb out in my current situation, but the cave has collapsed. The entire mountain seems to have split open. I can crawl out of the crack. Ji Tianxing quickly calmed down and decided to escape from the widest crack. He looked around and found the bag and blood dragon sword that had fallen in the pile of rocks. He picked up the blood dragon sword and was about to pick up the bag when the bag flipped a few times. A fluffy little head poked out from inside. Clang. Ji Tianxing was shocked. He subconsciously pulled out the blood dragon sword and slashed with it. The furry little head immediately shrank back into the bag and shouted anxiously, Don't kill me." Ji Tianxing immediately exclaimed and stared at the little head in the bag with a strange expression. The fluffy little head was ice blue, but its eyes were silver and revealed a cunning look. Ji Tianxing immediately recognized it. Aren't you that damn fox? How did you become like this?" As he spoke, he grabbed the ice fox's little head and pulled it out of the bag. It was still covered in icy blue fur, and it still had 12 furry tails. However, its body size was extremely small. It was only the size of a cat, and its strength was also extremely weak. Ji Tianxing picked up the little ice fox and examined it carefully. His expression became increasingly strange. No matter how calm and intelligent he was, He couldn't figure out what was going on. He was supposed to die and become food for the giant ice blue fox. However, after sleeping for half a day, he woke up to find that the cave had collapsed and the mountain had collapsed. Even the incomparably powerful, cunning and evil giant ice blue fox had become a kitten that could be easily slaughtered. Ji Tianxing did not have the slightest bit of pity for the ice fox that had almost eaten him. He grabbed its neck and asked, "Speak, what happened when I was unconscious?" Little ice fox rolled her eyes and thought to herself, it seems that this guy still doesn't know about the mysterious black hole. Hee. I can be saved. It struggled symbolically and said angrily, "I can tell you what happened, but you have to promise not to kill me." Ji Tianxing frowned and sneered, "Ha, you still dare to negotiate with me? Do you believe that I won't kill you now?" After saying that, he pressed the tip of the blood dragon sword against Little Ice Fox's head. Little Ice Fox was not afraid at all. She raised her little head proudly and said disdainfully, "If you kill me, you will never know the truth. That matter is very mysterious and very scary. It must be your biggest secret. Don't you want to know why?" Ji Tianxing was a little hesitant and silently put down the blood dragon sword. The cave collapsed, the huge mountain shattered, the Demon King realm giant ice blue fox turned into a kitten and lost all her power. Were all these strange things related to him? Of course, he wanted to know the truth. Little Ice Fox saw him put away the blood dragon sword and pondered with a face full of doubts. She smiled proudly and said, "If that's the case, I'll take it that you agree. You can't go back on your words." Ji Tianxing glanced at her and shouted, "Cut the crap and tell me." Little Ice Fox curled her lips unhappily and said slowly, "After you fainted, a black hole suddenly appeared in your body and swallowed all my power. So, I became like this, you despicable bastard." Black hole? Ji Tianxing was slightly stunned and a strange look flashed in his eyes. He instantly understood that the black hole that Little Ice Fox was talking about was the black hole in his dantian. It must be Kenshin's tomb in the black hole that saved him at the critical moment and swallowed Little Ice Fox's power. I didn't expect Kenshin's tomb to have such a magical effect. When I go back, I must study it carefully. Ji Tianxing made up his mind and asked Little Ice Fox, "What's going on with this cave?" Little Ice Fox blinked and said without hesitation, "I don't know. At that time, I lost all my power and fainted." Ji Tianxing stared at her coldly. Seeing her naturally cunning eyes, he knew that she must be lying. "Humph. You're on your own." He snorted coldly, carried the blood dragon sword and the bag, and walked toward the crack in the mountain not far away. The Little Ice Fox hurriedly followed behind him. Ji Tianxing immediately stopped and turned his head to look at her angrily. He asked, "Why are you following me? Go away." Little Ice Fox was not angry at all. She said confidently, "You swallowed my power and caused me to become like this. Of course, I have to follow you." Ji Tianxing sneered and said, "Little thing, I'm already merciful enough that I didn't kill you with my sword. Don't provoke my anger again." The Little Ice Fox immediately frowned and pouted, revealing an angry and aggrieved look. "You bastard, you don't keep your word. Are all of you humans so treacherous? What do you mean I don't keep my word?" Ji Tianxing frowned and shouted in a deep voice, "I only promised not to kill you, but I didn't promise to take you with me. I don't care. You have to take me with you and protect me." The Little Ice Fox looked like she was going to throw a tantrum. She muttered gloomily, "You made me like this, and now you want to leave me here. You just want to kill me." Ji Tianxing raised his sword-like eyebrows and shouted with a fierce look, "What do you mean? Are you blaming me? In that case, I'll kill you with my sword so that you won't keep pestering me." As he spoke, he was about to pull out the blood dragon sword. Little Ice Fox reached out her furry little paws and held his ankle tightly. She cried and shouted, "If you really want to kill me, then kill me. Anyway, if I stay here, other demonic beasts will definitely come for revenge and cut me into pieces. I'd rather die under your sword. At least I can turn into a resentful spirit and haunt you for the rest of my life." Chapter 35. Ji Tianxing had a headache and felt helpless about the Little Ice Fox's pestering. He kicked the Little Ice Fox away and asked with a dark face, "You're also a demonic beast, so you should be with demonic beasts. Why would the other demonic beasts seek revenge on you? The little ice fox snorted disdainfully and said in a muffled voice, how could I be with those low-level demonic beasts? I'm the overlord of the Taiyi mountain range. Previously, I had been entrenched in the Xianbing cave and was trapped there for 100 years. When I was hungry, I would catch a few demonic beasts to eat. When I was bored, I would also catch some powerful demonic beasts to amuse myself. In the entire Taiyi mountain range, countless powerful demonic beasts were tortured by me. If those demonic beasts saw me in this state, they would definitely seek revenge at all costs. Hearing this, Ji Tianxing's expression changed and many questions arose in his heart. The sneer on his face deepened and he said with disdain, if that's the case, then it's even more impossible for me to bring you along. If you follow me, who knows how many demonic beasts you'll attract. The little ice fox shook its head and said confidently, so what if other demonic beasts seek revenge? I'm the overlord of this mountain range. In the entire Taiyi mountain range, there's no place that I don't know. I know all the treasures and herbs in every corner. You entered the Taiyi mountain range alone, so you must be looking for treasures. With my guidance, I guarantee that you'll get twice the result with half the effort and find countless spiritual flowers and herbs. Ji Tianxing was silent for a moment as he weighed the pros and cons. He knew very well that although the little ice fox's words were a little exaggerated, he could basically believe it. However, he felt that there were many doubtful points in this matter and he still needed to consider it carefully. Little fox, do you know about the red star flower? Seeing that he had relented, the little ice fox knew that there was hope in this matter. It quickly nodded and said, of course I know. 60 years ago, I even ate a few human experts who were looking for the red star flower. Ji Tianxing frowned and said with a dark face, can you not mention eating humans? Tell me, where is the red star flower? Well. The little ice fox narrowed her eyes and revealed a sly smile. I can't tell you now, but I promise I can bring you to the red star flower. Ji Tianxing was a little angry. He couldn't wait to beat up this cunning little ice fox. He took out the psychic astrolabe from his bosom and sneered, do you think I can't find the scarlet meteorite flower without you? My psychic astrolabe can guide me to it. Little ice fox stared at the psychic astrolabe for a while and said with a contemptuous smile, haha, you want to find the red star flower with this broken astrolabe? You're underestimating the scarlet meteorite flower. When you find the scarlet meteorite flower with the compass, you will definitely be happy for nothing because what you find will definitely be the fake body of the scarlet meteorite flower. As for the real body of the scarlet meteorite flower, it has already flown away. Fly away. Ji Tianxing frowned. He didn't quite believe the little ice fox's words. The scarlet star flower was only a stalk of spirit herb and not a flying bird with intelligence. How could it fly away? However, since little ice fox didn't intend to explain, Ji Tianxing didn't ask about it anymore. He put away the psychic astrolabe and continued to ask, you just said that you were trapped in the Xianbing cave for 100 years and couldn't leave. What's going on? And, what kind of demonic beast are you? Why were you trapped in that cave? You must tell me honestly. Otherwise, I won't take you out of here. Little ice fox hesitated for a moment. There was a look of reminiscence in her eyes. She said in a low voice, actually, I don't know what kind of demonic beast I am. Maybe I'm not a demonic beast at all. When I was very young, I was brought here by a despicable human bastard. That bastard was very powerful. He was the one who dug out the Xianbing cave. He set up a spirit array in the cave and left me in the Xianbing cave to cultivate. He also said that he would take me out of here after 100 years. In the past 100 years, no matter how much I cultivated and how powerful I became, I couldn't leave the Xianbing cave. The spirit array set up by that bastard was too powerful. The harder I struggled, the more severe the backlash I suffered. Now that the 100-year deadline is approaching, I estimate that he will come to me in 2 years at most. But, I hate that bastard to the core. He made me so miserable. I will never follow him and be used by him. Ji Tianxing looked at little ice fox and saw that her silver eyes were surging with cold hatred. He thought to himself, the legendary demonic beast kings are all old monsters who have cultivated for hundreds or thousands of years. This little ice fox has only cultivated for 100 years, but she already has the strength of a demonic beast king. It seems that she is not an ordinary demonic beast. Although she is following me now, she will definitely find ways to kill me after she recovers her strength. After I find the red star flower, I will get rid of her so that I don't have to bring this disaster by my side. Sooner or later, my life will be in danger. After making up his mind, Ji Tianxing left the cave with Little Ice Fox and entered the huge crack in the mountain. Although Little Ice Fox had lost her power and became small and weak, but the Xianbing cave and the spirit array had been destroyed. She had finally regained her freedom and was in an extremely happy mood. Ji Tianxing held the blood dragon sword and carried the cloth bag on his back. She entered the bag and only revealed her small head to look around. Occasionally, she would chat with Ji Tianxing. An hour later, Ji Tianxing passed through the huge crack and crawled out of the pile of rocks. He finally returned to the mountainside. He turned to look at the peak of the mountain and saw that the entire mountain had split open. The peak of the mountain had completely disappeared as if it had been cut off into thin air. Originally, the entire mountain was covered by a dark green forest. But now, more than 10 huge yellow gullies were exposed. He could clearly see the rock layer in the mountainside. Such an earth-shattering movement is simply like a natural disaster. It's definitely not something that can be done by humans. Ji Tianxing was a little touched and shocked. He increasingly felt that the Kenshin's tomb in his body was mysterious and powerful. At this moment, a huge spiritual crane that was as white as snow was gently flapping its huge wings. It flew leisurely from high up in the sky and flew into the depths of the mountain range. Ji Tianxing immediately raised his eyebrows. A hint of surprise flashed through his eyes. He muttered softly, "She's here too? Is she also here for the red star flower?" Although he recognized the spiritual crane, he did not see the figure of the beautiful woman in white. However, he knew that Yun Yarrow must have come to the Taiyi Mountains. Little Ice Fox also poked her head out and looked up at the spiritual crane in the sky. She smiled and said, "Oh, the chick on the back of that spiritual crane is pretty good. Breasts, long legs, fair skin, and beautiful. If I can marry her, I don't know how many people will be jealous. TSK TSK. Her tone was a little flirtatious, but it was more of a teasing tone. After saying that, she even glanced at Ji Tianxing with a coquettish look. Ji Tianxing immediately frowned and knocked her little head with the scabbard. He said angrily, "You perverted fox, where did you learn such frivolous words? If she hears you, she'll definitely skin you alive and stew you to eat. But, your eyesight is so good. You can actually see the woman on the back of the spiritual crane from so far away?" Little Ice Fox raised her little head and said proudly, "Of course. Not to mention that it's daytime now, even if it's dark at night, I can see everything within a 10-mile radius clearly, but these are not worth mentioning. If I can recover my strength, you can't imagine how terrifying my strength and means are." Chapter 36. After leaving the collapsed mountain, Ji Tianxing brought the Ice Fox to the depths of the mountain range. While he was on his way, he was still silently calculating in his heart. Today should be the day when the red star flower blooms. The martial artists in Tai Town must have entered the mountain. I have to find the red star flower as soon as possible. Otherwise, it will be troublesome if the other martial artists get it. However, the Tai mountain range was very vast. It stretched for thousands of miles and there were many high mountains in the mountain range. Even though Ji Tianxing had the psychic astrolabe, he could not find the place where the red star flower grew in a short time. In his anxiety, he asked the Ice Fox, "Little Fox, which mountain is the red star flower on?" The Ice Fox was sleeping in the bag. When it heard Ji Tianxing's question, it answered without raising its head, "As for which mountain it is on, we will only know when we reach that area. We are still far from that area. Anyway, you just have to keep going forward." Ji Tianxing was not satisfied with such a perfunctory answer. He picked up the Ice Fox and stared at it with a serious expression. He said in a low voice, "Little Ice Fox, the red star flower is very important to me. I have to get it. If you dare to play any tricks, I will not let you off." However, the little Ice Fox did not take his threat to heart at all. She was still in a lazy posture. It stretched lazily and looked at Ji Tianxing with a smile. Hey, can't you have some confidence in me? I am the overlord of the Tai mountain range. I have been here for hundreds of years. It is just a red star flower. I will bring you to it before the sky turns dark. Ji Tianxing saw that the ice fox did not seem to be lying. He believed it for the time being and continued to travel through the forest. The ice fox did not sleep anymore. It lay lazily in the bag, raised its head and closed its eyes to rest. It even chatted with Ji Tianxing. Hey, what is your name? Ji Tianxing answered expressionlessly, Ji Tianxing. The ice fox smiled and said, then what should I call you? Little Ji, Ji, or Little Tianxing? Which one sounded better? You can choose one. Ji Tianxing's face darkened. He said impatiently, can you remove the word little? All right, old Ji, you're so weak. Why did you come to the Tai mountain range to look for the scarlet starflower? Ji Tianxing's face turned even darker. Hey, why aren't you saying anything? Ji Tianxing couldn't take it anymore. He frowned and shouted, you are an old monster who has lived for more than 100 years. How dare you call me old Ji? Don't you feel embarrassed? Aya, don't talk about me like that. The little ice fox smiled and pretended to be coquettish. She said in a sweet voice, I'm still a child. In fact, I'm just like a 10-year-old child of your human race. The voice and aura of the fox clan had an innate charm. The little ice fox's sweet voice made people's hearts tremble. They couldn't help but want to protect it. However, Ji Tianxing did not feel this way. Instead, he felt goosebumps all over his body. Were you a mute in your previous life? Or did you go crazy from being locked in the Xianbing cave? The little ice fox was not angry at all. Instead, she smiled proudly. Are you angry? Hee hee. Don't be so old-fashioned. It's so boring. Old Ji, tell me about the stories of your human race. For example, once upon a time, there was a scholar who saved an injured fox, and then the two of them consummated their marriage. Ji Tianxing was completely speechless. He ignored the little ice fox and hurried on with his journey. He muttered to himself, no wonder the demon foxes in the legends are so cunning. This little ice fox has only lived for 100 years, but she has such a sharp tongue. If she is allowed to grow for 300 to 500 years, won't she be able to bring disaster to the country and its people? Unknowingly, 6 hours had passed. Ji Tianxing hurried on with his journey. He crossed 7 mountains and finally entered the depths of the Tai mountain range. Although he was strong and had great endurance, he could travel through forests and mountains as if he was flying. However, he had been hurrying on with his journey for such a long time. He was drenched in sweat and had used up a lot of his energy. In the evening, he stopped at the foot of a tall mountain and sat beside a small stream to rest. He took out a water bottle and dry food from his bag. He ate a few pieces of beef jerky and drank a few mouthfuls of clear and sweet mountain spring water. His energy recovered by a lot. The little ice fox also took out 2 pieces of jerky from its bag. It imitated Ji Tianxing and ate it with its little paws. Ji Tianxing rested for a while and asked, Little fox, are you sure the red starflower is on this mountain? The little fox glanced at him unhappily and nodded. Of course. Why don't you believe me? I can already smell the scent of the red star flower. Smell the scent of the red star flower? Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows and asked in surprise, are we very close to it? After saying that, he looked around a few times. TSK. The little ice fox curled its lips in disdain. Stop looking. We're at least 10 miles away from the red star flower. You can smell the scent of the red star flower from 10 miles away? Ji Tianxing obviously did not believe it and looked at it with a scrutinizing look. The little ice fox raised its little head proudly and said with a smile, I've told you before. You can't imagine how sharp my 5 senses are. Besides, the red star flower needs to absorb the essence of the sun and the moon to grow. Of course, it won't grow at the foot of the mountain. It must grow at the peak of this mountain. However, you'll have to go over this mountain and reach the cliff behind to find it. Before it could finish its sentence, it was stunned and a strange look flashed in its eyes. However, it concealed it very well and said to Ji Tianxing with a smile, Old Ji, it's getting late. Let's go up the mountain quickly. Ji Tianxing saw that its expression was strange. He carried his bag and blood dragon sword and rushed to the peak of the mountain. He asked softly, "Little fox, what's wrong? Is there any movement from the red star flower?" The little ice fox curled up in the bag and said in a muffled voice, "The red star flower can only move at noon and midnight after absorbing the essence of the sun and the moon. You have to find it before midnight. However, we might be in a bit of trouble now. You have to speed up." Ji Tianxing frowned and silently increased his speed to the peak of the mountain. However, after a short 15 minutes, when he was halfway up the mountain, he heard the sound of branches and leaves rustling behind him. He subconsciously turned his head to look and saw a dark red monkey-like demonic beast rushing out of the forest like a gust of wind towards him. The monstrous beast was huge and was more than 3 meters tall. Its limbs were as thick as buckets and it obviously contained a shocking amount of strength. "This is a red fire ape." Ji Tianxing immediately frowned and his expression became serious. An adult red fire ape's strength is comparable to a martial artist at the 6th level of the true energy realm. Moreover, the red fire ape is very intelligent and strong. It's the most difficult to deal with among the mid-tier monstrous beast. "Little fox, you call this a little trouble? We're in big trouble." Chapter 37. With Ji Tianxing's current strength at the 9th body refinement layer, he had no chance of winning against the scarlet fire ape. His expression was serious as he vigilantly stared at the approaching scarlet fire ape. The little ice fox poked its little head out of the bag. After looking at the scarlet fire ape, it disdainfully curled its lips. "Che! Just that stupid monkey, how strong can it be? In the past, it ran to the Xian Bing cave to save its child, but I sent it flying down the mountain with a single slap." Ji Tianxing instantly knit his brows and snappily shouted, "It came to find you for revenge? Could it be that you killed its child?" The little ice fox disapprovingly said, "What's there to be surprised about? I was bored staying in the Xian Bing cave and its child was jumping around outside. Of course I had to bring that little monkey into the cave to play with. I never thought that little monkey would be so weak. I didn't even play with it for a bit before its 4 legs kicked and it died." Ji Tianxing was speechless. He angrily laughed as he scolded, "You're still being reasonable, aren't you? Hearing your tone, you didn't play to your heart's content and seemed disappointed. Ari, let's not talk about the past." The little ice fox had a dispirited appearance as it shook its head and said, "You should think about how to deal with this fire monkey. You." Ji Tianxing angrily gritted his teeth. He wished he could beat the little ice fox half to death to vent his anger. But at this time, the scarlet fire ape was only 5 feet away from him. The scarlet fire ape opened its strong arms and stood on the ground. Its scarlet eyes stared at Ji Tianxing. It opened its wide mouth and revealed 2 rows of sharp teeth. At such a close distance, Ji Tianxing could smell the thick scent of blood coming from its body. He could clearly see the blood and bone fragments in its teeth. He secretly gripped the blood dragon sword and his muscles tightened as he accumulated all his strength. Roar! The crimson fire ape suddenly let out a low roar and suddenly jumped up. Like an arrow leaving the bow, it pounced towards Ji Tianxing with its huge claws. Ji Tianxing immediately moved 3 meters away, narrowly dodging the crimson fire ape's attack. Bang bang! The crimson fire ape's huge claws slammed onto the ground, shattering a huge rock the size of a water tank. This red fire ape is actually so powerful. Ji Tianxing was shocked. He waved his sword with all his might and slashed at the back of the red fire ape. The crimson fire ape turned around and swung its arms to hit the blood dragon sword, sending it flying. With a whoosh sound, it stabbed into a tree not far away. Ji Tianxing was also sent flying 10 feet away and fell on the grass. His right shoulder was numb and stinging, and for a moment, he couldn't exert any strength. The crimson fire ape's figure flashed and pounced over. With a bang, it slapped Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing was immediately sent flying more than 20 feet away. He crashed into a big tree and rolled into the bushes. The clothes on his back were torn apart by the crimson fire ape's sharp claws. His entire back was covered in blood and burning pain. After being slapped by the crimson fire ape, he felt that all the bones in his body were about to break. He was so dizzy that he couldn't get up at all. The bag on his back was also sent flying by the crimson fire ape. It fell into the grass and all the food inside spilled out. However, the little ice fox was safe and sound. Seeing that the situation wasn't good, it had already jumped out of the bag and onto the top of a tree. The crimson fire ape didn't chase after Ji Tianxing. It stared at the little ice fox on the top of the tree with its blood-red eyes and bared its fangs as it growled. Roar! It jumped again with all its might and leaped more than 10 meters high. It waved its claws and pounced on the little ice fox on the top of the tree. With a catcher-catcher sound, the thick tree branches between the crimson fire ape and the little ice fox were all smashed into pieces. Seeing that there was nowhere to hide, the little ice fox's silver eyes were filled with rage as it let out an angry roar. It roared, "Damn old monkey, go to hell." It waved its front claws with all its might and shot out a 2-foot-long icy blue light. It shot towards the crimson fire ape like a sword. The crimson fire ape had just pounced in front of the little ice fox and couldn't dodge in time. It was instantly hit in the chest by the icy blue light. Bang! With a muffled sound, the crimson fire ape flew back from the top of the tree. It drew an arc in the sky and landed on the grass a few meters away with a plop. There was a big hole in the grass. Dirt, stones, and grass were mixed together and splattered everywhere. When the crimson fire ape struggled to get up, its chest was already stained with blood. There was a fist-sized bloody hole. The little ice fox had released an icy blue light and severely injured the crimson fire ape. However, the icy blue brilliance had already exhausted its power, and it immediately fell from the tree into the bushes in a dispirited manner. Seeing this, the crimson fire ape's eyes shone fiercely. It roared and pounced on the little ice fox. Ji Tianxing saw that the little ice fox couldn't escape or resist. He subconsciously rushed over to save it. However, his blood dragon sword was sent flying. Without a weapon in his hand, how could he block the crimson fire ape's attack? At this critical moment, he suddenly recalled the scene in the Xianbing cave last night. At that time, he was bound by the little ice fox's icy blue light. He struggled with all his might and managed to force out the 12 streaks of sword qi in his body. They circled around him and danced. Thinking of this, he activated the sword qi in his body with all his might and forced the 12 streaks of sword qi out of his body. Swish, 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 12 streaks of golden sword qi instantly appeared and danced around him. Go! Ji Tianxing roared and controlled the 12 streaks of sword qi to attack the crimson fire ape that was 3 meters away. The crimson fire ape's chest was severely injured. Its strength was greatly reduced, and its speed of attack was also much slower. It had just rushed to the little ice fox's side and raised a pair of fan-sized palms to slap the little ice fox. At this moment, the 12 streaks of sword qi pierced over at lightning speed. It was immediately forced to withdraw its palms and quickly retreat. Swish, swish. The sword qi slashed the crimson fire ape's shoulder and neck, leaving behind 3 thin and long wounds. Dark red blood flowed out. Although the crimson fire ape's injuries weren't serious, the 12 streaks of sword qi that were flying around it made it unable to get close to the little ice fox. It roared furiously and desperately waved its claws to attack the surrounding sword qi. It wanted to break through the encirclement of sword qi and kill Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing's face was as pale as a sheet of paper. He dodged backward while concentrating on controlling the sword qi to kill the crimson fire ape. The crimson fire ape kept roaring and desperately closed in on Ji Tianxing. However, it was pierced by the sword qi again and again. There were more and more wounds on its body. Ji Tianxing fought with it for a while and was drenched in sweat. He was so tired that he almost fainted. It was only now that he realized that controlling the 12 streaks of sword qi to fight was extremely taxing on his mind. With his current strength, he could only hold on for about 30 breaths before fainting. Fortunately, the crimson fire ape was severely injured. After being pierced by the sword qi, it was bleeding profusely and its strength was quickly weakening. It only held on for about 20 breaths before it roared in grief and indignation. It turned and fled into the forest. Ji Tianxing had already exhausted his mind and physical strength. He couldn't chase after the crimson fire ape. He quickly withdrew the 12 streaks of sword chi and sat on the grass, panting heavily. Chapter 38. The Crimson Fire Ape had escaped, and the forest was quiet again. Ji Tianxing lay on the grass and looked at the sky with misty eyes. The orange sunset was gradually falling to the horizon. The sky was getting dark, and the moon would rise in at most 2 hours. He knew that time was tight, but he did not have the energy to get up. He did not even want to move his fingers. Too tired. The tiredness that came from the depths of his soul made him realize the consequences of overexerting his mind. Although I can control the sword energy to kill enemies within 10 feet of me, this is an effect that can only be achieved by someone at the 7th stage of the true energy realm. But this consumes too much energy. If I use it a few more times, I might become mentally weak and become a fool. It seems that I have to be careful in the future and only use it at critical moments to save my life. He closed his eyes and thought silently, waiting for his physical and mental strength to slowly recover. At this moment, the little ice fox poked its head out from the grass. It looked around cautiously. Seeing that there was no danger around, it picked up the bag not far away and dragged it to Ji Tianxing. "Old Ji, didn't you bring many pills in your bag? Quickly use the pills to recover your energy, it's getting dark. We have to leave this place quickly." As it spoke, it took out 4 or 5 small white jade bottles from the bag and lined them up in front of Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing stretched out his hands and picked up a small jade bottle with the words "energy nourishing pill" on it. He opened the bottle and poured out a few red pills. He stuffed them into his mouth, chewed twice, and swallowed them. Suddenly, he realized that something was wrong. He looked at the little ice fox in confusion. "Little fox, why are more than half of my pills gone? Did you secretly eat them?" The little ice fox took 2 steps back and explained with a smile, "I was bored lying in the bag, so I ate the pills like they were candy. I didn't do it on purpose." "You stinky fox." Ji Tianxing was so angry that he wanted to hit it. However, he had not recovered his energy and could only give up. "I think you want to secretly eat the pills to recover your energy and then run away?" Little Ice Fox rolled her eyes and quickly changed the topic. "Hey, old G, don't talk. It's more important to recover your strength. If we don't leave before dark, the smell of blood on the grass will attract a large number of demonic beasts. At that time, the 2 of us can only become the demonic beast's dinner." Ji Tianxing suppressed his anger and swallowed a few more recovery pills to quickly recover his strength. About an hour later, the sky darkened, and night was about to fall. At this time, Ji Tianxing's physical strength had recovered by about 60 to 70%. He carried his backpack and continued to rush to the mountain peak. On the way to the summit, he heard the sounds of demonic beasts running in all directions, as well as the roars of beasts. The little ice fox quickly reminded him, "The red star flower has bloomed, and its scent is getting stronger. The demonic beasts nearby have smelled the scent and are rushing over to snatch it. You have to speed up. Otherwise, not only will we not be able to obtain the scarlet meteorite flower, we will also be besieged by a large group of demonic beasts." Ji Tianxing frowned and rushed to the peak with all his might. After a quarter of an hour, he finally reached the peak of the mountain, which was thousands of feet high, and came to a forest with sparse trees. He looked around vigilantly, looking for the location of the red star flower and checking the situation around him. However, the sky was already dark, and the forest was dimly lit. It was difficult to see clearly. He could only hear the sounds from the surrounding forest getting louder and louder, and the roars of beasts were getting closer. Little Ice Fox quickly stretched out her little paw and pointed to the southwest of the forest. "Over there. Go quickly, there's a cliff over there." At this moment, Ji Tianxing did not have time to distinguish whether she was telling the truth or not. He hurriedly rushed over. He ran wildly for more than 3 miles before he rushed out of the dense and dark forest and came to a patch of rubble. The empty space with a radius of 1,000 feet was filled with rubble. Between the dark brown boulders, there were weeds that were half a man's height. Ji Tianxing jumped into the rubble, and his body nimbly passed through dozens of boulders and dense bushes. Finally, he arrived at the edge of the cliff. 5 steps in front of him was the cliff, and in front of him was the sky that was shrouded in thick fog. The cliff was at least thousands of feet deep. White fog constantly rose from the bottom of the cliff, obscuring everything at the bottom of the cliff. Ji Tianxing could not see clearly. Little Ice Fox's little red nose twitched twice, and her eyes revealed a touch of joy. She hurriedly urged, "Old Ji, the scent of the red star flower is coming from the bottom of the cliff. It's not more than 200 feet away from us. Hurry up and look for it." Ji Tianxing was also delighted, and he looked around in high spirits. He stepped on the edge of the cliff and leaned half of his body to look down. He immediately saw that there was a steep rock cliff below the cliff. However, the cliff was not flat, and there were many cracks in many places. There were also many protruding boulders embedded in the cliff, and there were many green vines growing on them. Night finally fell. The stars and the moon had not yet appeared, and the world was pitch black. Ji Tianxing anxiously searched the area within a radius of 200 feet, but he did not see the red star flower. He did not even find a strand of strange-looking medicinal herb. Suddenly, little Ice Fox, who was lying on his shoulder, stretched out her little paw and pointed at a huge rock at the bottom of the cliff. She cried out in surprise, "Old Ji, look over there." Ji Tianxing hurriedly looked in the direction that she was pointing at, and he immediately saw that in the cracks of the huge rock, there was a faint silver light. "It's the red star flower. It must be." Ji Tianxing's spirits were lifted, and he hurriedly found a vine that was as thick as a wrist on the ground. He climbed down the cliff using the vine. Before he came to the Taiyi Mountains, he had carefully investigated information about the red star flower. The red star flower was more than 2 feet tall. Its stem and branches were dark, but its flower was silver. This flower had absorbed the essence of the sun, moon, and stars for many years. Its petals would emit a faint silver light at night, just like starlight. However, this flower only bloomed once every 60 years, and each plant only had one flower. The flower would only bloom for 6 days before it wilted. Not long after, Ji Tianxing crawled along the vines until he was about 10 feet below the cliff. His feet stepped on a big rock that protruded from the cliff. However, he was still more than 40 feet away from the huge rock where the red star flower grew. With his strength, it was impossible for him to jump over. The cliff between the two huge rocks was bare, and there was no place for him to lean on. There was only a cluster of dark green vines growing on it. The vines were only as thick as chopsticks, and they looked very weak. They could not support his weight at all. He had no doubt that if he climbed those vines to pick the red star flower, he would definitely fall off the cliff and be smashed into pieces. At this moment, Ji Tianxing's face revealed a helpless, bitter smile. The red star flower was not far in front of him, but he could not pick it, and he could not even get close. Moreover, he could clearly hear the footsteps of demonic beasts running from the rocks above the cliff. At least 3 demonic beasts had already rushed to the edge of the cliff. Chapter 39. What should I do? Ji Tianxing looked at the huge rock 4 feet away. His eyes were fixed on the starlight in the cracks of the rock, and he was trying to think of a solution anxiously. At this moment, the little ice fox came out of the bag and jumped down nimbly. It landed beside Ji Tianxing's feet. It observed the distance between the 2 huge rocks, and a smile flashed across its silver eyes. While Ji Tianxing was not paying attention, it jumped out with all its might. Swoosh! Just as it was about to fall from midair, it suddenly opened a pair of ice-blue wings under its abdomen and flapped them vigorously. Its figure drew an ice-blue arc in midair, and it flew lightly towards the huge rock not far away. Seeing this, Ji Tianxing was stunned for a moment, and immediately revealed a gratified smile. "That's right. Why didn't I think of the little fox? It has wings, and it can totally fly over there." He smiled approvingly at the little ice fox, and hurriedly reminded it, "Little fox, be gentle. You must be careful." The little ice fox was flying in midair, and it turned its head to give him a playful smile. The next moment, it landed lightly on the huge rock where the red meteorite flower grew. It moved closer to the cracks of the rock, took a few glances, and stretched out its small claws to dig in the cracks. It lay on the huge rock, and its 12 furry tails were sticking out. The way it moved looked a little funny. However, Ji Tianxing ignored all this. His eyes were fixed on the cracks of the rock, and his heart was in his throat. The next moment, The little ice fox got up with all its might, turned around, and looked at him with a smile, and stretched out a pair of front claws. He saw that it was holding a silver flower in its claws. The flower was half the size of a palm, and it had 6 light silver petals that sparkled in the night sky. This was the red meteorite flower. Ji Tianxing's face was full of smiles, and he exclaimed excitedly, "I finally got it. That's great. Little fox, thank you." However, the little ice fox held the red meteorite flower, but it did not intend to return to his side. Instead, it sat on the huge rock. It looked at Ji Tianxing with a smile, its silver eyes full of ridicule. "Old Ji, do you think I will give you the scarlet starflower? Hihi, I'm not your pet." The smile on Ji Tianxing's face suddenly froze. He glared at the little fox and said coldly, "Little fox, what do you mean? Don't tell me you want to snatch my scarlet starflower." The scarlet starflower is used to repair the dantian and meridians. It's only effective for humans. It's useless for you. The little ice fox smiled and nodded. "Yes, of course I know. I don't need this scarlet starflower, but I won't give it to you so easily, unless you can promise me 3 things. Ji Tianxing was so angry that his face turned pale. He pointed at the little ice fox and scolded, "You cruel and unscrupulous fox. I just saved your life, and now you want to negotiate with me?" The ice fox laughed even more proudly. She even said in a sweet voice, "Oh, old Ji, don't be like this. I have no choice. I want to save my life. After all, you don't trust me. I'm also afraid that you will abandon me one day, or kill me with a sword. Don't worry. My conditions are very simple. You will definitely agree." Ji Tianxing also understood that with the ice fox's cunning and intelligence, she would definitely have a backup plan. Therefore, he suppressed his anger and said with a dark face, "Then tell me your conditions first. I will consider it." That's more like it. Old Ji, you are becoming more and more to my liking." The ice fox nodded with a smile and said her conditions in a serious tone. "The first condition is that no matter when or what the situation is, you will never abandon me." Ji Tianxing furrowed his brows and pondered with a gloomy face. Seeing that he was silent, the ice fox played with the scarlet starflower with her claws. She shook her claws and tore off a light silver petal. "Oh, why did a petal fall off?" She pretended to be surprised and called out, but her tone was full of undisguised laughter. After saying that, she took the petal and waved it at Ji Tianxing a few times. When Ji Tianxing saw that a petal was torn off the scarlet starflower, his heart skipped a beat and his face became even more gloomy. "I promise you." The ice fox nodded with satisfaction and continued, "The second condition is that no matter when or what the situation is, you will never kill me." Ji Tianxing stared at her with a face full of anger and shouted angrily, "I promise you." Very good. The ice fox nodded with satisfaction again and said with a smile, "The third condition is that you must protect me wholeheartedly and not let me get hurt. Don't you go overboard." Ji Tianxing was so angry that he gritted his teeth. His eyes revealed a cold murderous intent. The ice fox played with the scarlet starflower again and pretended to be surprised. Oh, it fell off again. Seeing that it was about to tear off another petal, Ji Tianxing's heart ached. Without hesitation, he shouted coldly, "Don't. I'll agree to your request." The ice fox looked at him with a smile but still refused to believe him. It held the scarlet starflower with its little claws and extended it to the sky outside the giant rock. It looked like it was going to throw it down the cliff. "Old Ji, unless you swear to heaven and earth, I will only believe you." Ji Tianxing was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. He stared at the ice fox with a pale face. If looks could kill, the ice fox would have been torn into pieces. "Hurry up and swear," the ice fox urged with a smile. "Otherwise, I will throw the scarlet starflower down the cliff." Ji Tianxing held back his anger and said through gritted teeth, Ji Tianxing, swear to heaven that I will never go back on my word after I agree to the 3 conditions of the ice fox." The ice fox sat on the giant rock and looked at him with a smile. After listening to him, it said, "That's it. Old Ji, you are not sincere. You haven't finished the second half of your sentence. What are you talking about? What are you talking about?" Ji Tianxing was so angry that he almost vomited blood. With a black face, he scolded, "Stupid fox, are you done?" The ice fox did not continue to pester him. It nodded with a smile and said, "All right, seeing that you are sincere, I will believe you for now. Sigh, I am too kind and soft-hearted. Old Ji, you must remember the promise between us." After it finished speaking, it flapped its wings and slowly flew back to Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing grabbed the scarlet star flower that it was holding and carefully put it into a sandalwood box together with the petal that was torn off. "Stupid fox. You." Just as he was about to grab the little ice fox and give it a good beating, the little ice fox was prepared for it. It immediately flew 20 feet into the air. "Old Ji, don't be angry. Look above us first." Ji Tianxing was so angry that he did not pay attention to the situation above the cliff. Now that he had calmed down, he turned his head and looked above the cliff. His expression changed instantly. He saw that on the edge of the cliff 10 feet above him, more than 10 heads of monsters had popped out. More than 10 pairs of cold eyes were staring at him with murderous intent. Chapter 40. The dozen or so gigantic demonic beasts were all mid-tier demonic beasts. Any one of them was as powerful as a martial artist at True Element Realm LV5. With Ji Tianxing's current strength, he could not even defeat one of the demonic beasts, let alone a dozen of them. Most importantly, he was trapped on a huge rock at the bottom of the cliff. He could neither reach the sky nor the ground. The dozen or so demonic beasts were lying on the edge of the cliff, waiting for him to escape. "I'm dead." Ji Tianxing's face darkened. The joy of obtaining the red meteorite flower had disappeared immediately. He secretly held the blood dragon sword tightly and stared at the demonic beasts on the cliff. Although the demonic beasts could still restrain their desire to snatch the red meteorite flower, Ji Tianxing was still worried. If he dragged on for too long, the demonic beasts would pounce on him without regard for their lives. What should he do then? Just then, the ice fox's voice sounded behind him. "Old Ji, you only have 2 choices now. Either you climb up and be eaten by the demonic beasts, or you jump off the cliff and die. However, there are demonic beasts at the bottom of the cliff. In the end, your body may still be eaten." Ji Tianxing was so angry that his teeth itched. He shouted angrily, "Cut the crap and think of a way. If I don't live, do you think you can escape?" "Of course." The ice fox smiled proudly. "Old Ji, are you stupid? I can fly." As it spoke, it flapped its little wings proudly and flew around Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing was so angry that he almost vomited blood. He decided to keep quiet so that he would not be angered by the ice fox. He frowned and thought for a while. Then, he thought of an idea. "Little fox, I'll give you the red meteorite flower. Take it and fly to the top of the mountain. Lure the demonic beasts away." Before he could finish, the ice fox had guessed what he wanted to do. It shook its head and refused. "Me. Don't even think about it. You want me to lure the demonic beasts away? Create an opportunity for you to climb up. Am I that stupid? You." Ji Tianxing was so angry that his chest was blocked. He took a few deep breaths to suppress his anger. At this moment, little ice fox suddenly pointed to the sky and cried out in surprise, "Hey, old Ji, look. Big-breasted chick is here to save you." "What big-breasted girl?" Ji Tianxing glared at it and looked up at the sky. In the sky above the cliff, a huge white spirit crane suddenly flew over. The spirit crane flapped its wings gracefully and slowly descended towards the rocks on the cliff. Although the night was dark, Ji Tianxing could still vaguely see a beautiful woman in a white dress standing on the back of the spirit crane. It was Yun Yarrow. She stood proudly on the back of the spirit crane, holding a sword with a black scabbard in her left hand. Her waist-length black hair danced in the wind, making her look like a fairy that had descended to the mortal world. There was a commotion among the demonic beasts on the edge of the cliff. They all showed strong hostility and roared at the spirit crane. At this moment, the spirit crane landed in the air 10 feet away from the ground. Yun Yarrow suddenly made her move. She held the sword with her right hand and pulled out the sword with a clang. In the dark night sky, a 5-feet-long cold light suddenly lit up, like a pool of autumn water. Swish, 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 swish. Yoon Yarrow waved the sword in her hand and slashed out 6 3-feet-long cold sword light towards the demonic beasts in the rocks. The 6 sword light lit up the night sky and instantly flew out 10 feet away, stabbing 6 huge demonic beasts. Bang 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 muffled sounds were constantly heard, mixed with the miserable cries of many demonic beasts. Cold light flashed in the rocks. Several millstone stones were cut into pieces by the sword light, splashing out countless broken stones. Ji Tianxing could clearly feel that the earth was trembling. There were also several big stones that collapsed from the edge of the cliff and smashed into the bottom of the cliff. Although this was the 3rd time he had seen Yoon Yarrow make a move, he was still shocked. However, he still felt shocked in his heart, and an imperceptible look flashed through his eyes as he looked up at Yoon Yarrow. After a while, the demonic beasts scattered and ran for their lives in panic. Only then did the cliff return to its peaceful state. The crisis was over. Ji Tianxing quickly climbed up the cliff along the vines and returned to the rocks. The spirit crane had landed on the ground and was standing proudly in silence. In the surrounding rocks, there were 6 corpses of middle-rank demonic beasts. They were all killed by a single sword strike. The beautiful woman in white, Yoon Yarrow, was also standing on a millstone stone in the rocks. Seeing Ji Tianxing climb up from the bottom of the cliff, her beautiful face that was originally as calm as water revealed a trace of astonishment. "It's you." Obviously, Yoon Yarrow did not expect to meet Ji Tianxing here. Ji Tianxing walked to 10 meters away from her and stood still. He revealed a gentle smile and nodded. "It's me, Miss Yoon Yarrow. We meet again." The little ice fox lay on his shoulder and looked at Yoon Yarrow with a smile. No one knew what it was thinking. Yoon Yarrow glanced at Ji Tianxing and said calmly, "I didn't expect that the first person to find the red star flower would be you." Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows. "Miss Yoon Yarrow, do you also need this red star flower?" Yoon Yarrow nodded calmly. "Yes. Tonight, you are determined to get the red star flower?" Ji Tianxing asked. Yoon Yarrow was silent for a moment and nodded again. "Yes." Ji Tianxing frowned and was puzzled. Why would a top disciple of the Sky Pillar sect like Yoon Yarrow, the #1 genius of the Tianchen region, come to the Taiyi mountain range personally to find the red star flower? Why would a genius like her need a spiritual herb like the red star flower? Or did she have other uses for the red star flower? But no matter what, the red star flower was in his hands and Yoon Yarrow was determined to get it. Therefore, he and Yoon Yarrow were enemies. Ji Tianxing thought about it in silence. Then, he took out the sandalwood box from his bag and walked toward Yoon Yarrow with the box. Seeing this, the little ice fox panicked and shouted, "Old Ji, what are you doing? Are you crazy? We risked our lives to get the red star flower. Are you going to give it to her?" "Hey, Old Ji, calm down." The little ice fox jumped up and down anxiously and shouted at Ji Tianxing to remind him. However, Ji Tianxing turned a deaf ear to it. He walked toward Yoon Yarrow calmly and handed the sandalwood box to her. "Miss Yoon Yarrow, although we all want the red star flower, I won't fight with you. You saved my life in the southern suburbs of the Imperial City of the Green Cloud Imperial City. Now, I'll give you this red star flower as a gift to repay you for saving my life." At this moment, Ji Tianxing was standing right in front of Yoon Yarrow. He was so close to her. Yoon Yarrow's beautiful face and big eyes that were as clear as autumn water were so close to him. He could even smell the faint fragrance on Yoon Yarrow's body clearly. However, Ji Tianxing's eyes were not stunned. There was only calmness and calmness. Yoon Yarrow looked at him deeply. Then, she reached out her fair and soft hand and took the sandalwood box. She opened the box and took out the red star flower. However, after she took the red star flower, she plucked all 5 petals without hesitation. She only took the stamen and returned the sandalwood box with the 6 petals to Ji Tianxing. "I only need the stamen. I'll return these 6 petals to you. They can still help you improve your cultivation base." After she finished speaking, she kept the stamen of the red star flower and turned to walk toward the spirit crane. She did not seem to exert any force with her legs, but her body flew a few feet into the air and landed on the spirit crane's back as light as snow. The spirit crane let out a clear cry. It immediately spread its wings and flew into the sky, flying away. Chapter 41. Ji Tianxing stood among the rocks, holding the sandalwood box with 6 petals in his hands. He raised his head and looked at Yun Yaro's back as she left. Her figure was getting farther and farther away. As the spirit crane flew away, she gradually disappeared into the dark night. Ji Tianxing stood there in a daze for a long time without looking away. At this time, the ice fox picked up a branch from somewhere. It held the branch with its claws and knocked on Ji Tianxing's head. Ji Tianxing suddenly woke up. He turned his head and looked at the ice fox. He shouted angrily, "Little fox, what are you doing?" The ice fox looked at him with disdain and said in an unfriendly tone, "Stop looking, she has left." "What are you looking at?" Ji Tianxing was too lazy to respond. He put the sandalwood box into his bag and was about to go down the mountain through the rocks. The ice fox flapped its wings and flew beside him. It asked in a mocking tone, "Ji, do you know her? Do you like her? Do you like her because she is beautiful? Or do you like her breasts and long legs? Ji, I don't want to nag at you. If you like her, go after her. If you can't get her, just pester her. If you keep it in your heart and don't say anything, how will she know that you like her? Ji, I look down on you. Hey, Ji, why don't you say anything? Are you still thinking about that chick?" Ji Tianxing wanted to go down the mountain in silence and ignore the ice fox. But he was annoyed by the ice fox's harassment. He couldn't help but shout angrily, "Little fox, shut up." Seeing that he was angry, the ice fox didn't say anything more. It muttered a few words unhappily and went back to sleep in the bag. "Mate, when you saw the big-breasted chick, you looked like you were obsessed with her. You even gave away the red star flower that we tried so hard to find. If that big-breasted chick wasn't so reserved, you wouldn't even have a petal left. Temph, how can a gullible guy like you protect me in the future? I'm really worried about my future." Ji Tianxing was too lazy to explain what had happened to the ice fox. He did not want to explain that he did not want to owe anyone a favor. To explain the meaning of favor to a little fox demon, he felt awkward just thinking about it. He simply hurried on his way in silence, rushing all the way down the mountain. About an hour later, Ji Tianxing arrived at the foot of the mountain and returned to the mountain stream. Now that he had obtained the red star flower, there was no need for him to stay in the Taiyi mountain range and risk his life. He just wanted to leave this place as soon as possible. Even though the Taiyi mountain range was extremely dangerous at night, with countless demonic beasts roaming about. However, Ji Tianxing knew that with the little ice fox's keen 5 senses, she would be able to help him avoid most of the demonic beasts. However, when he followed the mountain stream and walked out of the forest, a cold laugh came from the dark forest not far away. "Haha, I didn't expect that someone would have already obtained the scarlet meteorite flower before all the experts have found it." Suddenly hearing the owl-like cold laugh, Ji Tianxing stopped in his tracks. He looked at the forest vigilantly and secretly held the blood dragon sword tightly. He did not open his mouth to speak. His eyes were searching in the dark forest, and his ears were listening to all the sounds within a radius of 30 meters. In the next moment, the hoarse and unpleasant voice sounded again. "Temph, I'm lucky enough. Not only can I take your head to receive the reward, but I can also get the scarlet meteorite flower. Hee hee." As soon as the voice sounded, 3 cold lights suddenly flew out from the dark forest and shot toward Ji Tianxing like sharp arrows. Hidden weapons. Ji Tianxing's pupils constricted. With a step, he moved 3 meters away. At the same time, he waved the blood dragon sword and slashed out a sword light. Ding ding. 2 crisp sounds burst out. 2 cold lights were slashed by the blood dragon sword and bounced off, landing in the grass. Another cold light brushed past Ji Tianxing. With an ear-piercing sound, it was nailed into a big tree not far behind him. At the same time, a black figure pounced out from the darkness and silently waved 2 sabers to stab Ji Tianxing's vital parts. The black figure's movements were very swift, like a ghost in the night. He held the 2 sharp sabers tightly in his hands. The blades were also black and would not shine with a cold light to attract attention. Ji Tianxing instantly understood that this black figure was definitely an assassin whose job was to kill people. Swoosh, swoosh. The 2 black sabers were in front of Ji Tianxing. Before the blades arrived, a biting cold force hit his face, causing his cheeks to hurt. At the moment of life and death, his expression was extremely grave. He waved the blood dragon sword with all his might to block the assassin's assassination. Ding ding dang dang. The sabers and swords of both sides clashed several times, producing crisp sounds of metal clashing. Sparks flew from the sabers and swords. Ji Tianxing was also pushed back by the majestic force. His arms were numb and stinging. Third level of the true energy realm? Or fourth level? He muttered to himself and roughly judged the black-clothed assassin's strength. Although he did not have much of a chance of winning against an assassin of such strength, he would not be killed so easily. 10 Mysterious Sword Technique. Ji Tianxing clenched his teeth and unleashed his ultimate sword technique with all his strength to fight fiercely with the black-clothed assassin. His muscles swelled up, and his bones made crisp cracking sounds. It was obvious that he had pushed his strength to the limit. The two figures kept jumping and moving in the forest. Every time they got close, there would be clashing sounds. It was difficult to tell who was the winner. Ji Tianxing had used up a lot of his strength. He was sweating profusely and his face was pale. Even his left arm had been hit by a saber, leaving behind a chopstick-sized wound. However, he still clenched his teeth and fought with all his might. He would not back down easily. The black-clothed assassin attacked Ji Tianxing continuously for more than 10 moves. His two sabers left a few wounds on Ji Tianxing's body, but he still could not kill Ji Tianxing. He was a little impatient. His eyes were bloodshot and turned dark red. In anger, he unleashed all his strength and used a fatal move. Golden Rainbow Slash. He roared with murderous intent. His two sabers slashed out 9 pitch-black saber shadows toward Ji Tianxing's 9 vital points. It looked like there was a towering tree behind Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing had nowhere to retreat to due to the saber images. At this critical moment, he did not hesitate to use his trump card. Sword Chi, out. Following his shout, 12 golden sword chis immediately flew out of his body and stabbed towards the black-clothed assassin with a swish swish swish. The rapidly rotating sword chi collided with the 9 saber shadows, causing a series of crisp sounds to ring out. Although the 9 saber shadows did not dissipate, they were knocked out of their original directions. They all slashed into the towering tree and the grass. In a split second, deep dents were left on the thick tree trunks. Several gullies were also cut into the grass. Dust flew everywhere. Sword chi. There are actually so many of them. The black-clothed assassin was stunned. His eyes widened in shock. He already found it unbelievable that a trash in the refinement realm could withstand 30 moves from him. But now, this trash had actually released sword chi, and 12 of them at once. Only experts at the true energy realm level 7 and above could condense the yuan chi in their body into sword chi and release it outside their body to attack. How did this famous trash in the Imperial City do it? Could it be that his strength did not fall to the refinement realm and he was still a genius at the true energy realm level 7? Chapter 42. The black-clothed assassin could not understand, nor did he dare to believe this fact. While he was still in a daze, 12 streaks of sword chi had already arrived in front of him like lightning. Swish, swish, sword chi crisscrossed, and a faint golden light flickered in the night sky. The black-clothed assassin's chest, shoulders, and face were instantly pierced with 12 wounds. Dark red blood spurted out from the wounds. When experts exchanged blows, they couldn't afford to be distracted or hesitate. The 12 wounds on his body were the result of being in a daze. Although these injuries were not fatal, the excruciating pain made him suck in a breath of cold air, and his back broke out in cold sweat. The black-clothed assassin flew into a rage, fiercely waving his 2 blades. After shaking off the many sword energies, he charged towards Ji Tianxing. Bastard, die. As the black-clothed assassin pounced over, there was also a thick murderous aura that made people tremble in fear. Ji Tianxing was still calm and composed. He did his best to control the 12 sword chis to block the assassin's attack. In this way, the black-clothed assassin was unable to approach him any longer, and he was surrounded by danger by the numerous sword chi attacks, causing him to be in an extremely sorry state. In a short span of 10 breaths, the black-clothed assassin had been stabbed 37 times, and his body was covered with wounds. Blood gushed out and soaked his clothes, making him look like a bloody person. He looked exceptionally ferocious and terrifying. Even the ferocious Crimson Fire ape would not be able to withstand such heavy injuries, let alone a 4th-level true energy stage assassin in black. The consequence of losing too much blood was that his vision became blurry, his strength quickly dissipated, and his footsteps became even more unsteady. The black-clothed assassin's heart was filled with terror. He no longer had any will to fight and only wanted to turn around and flee. However, Ji Tianxing controlled the 12-sword cheese and chased after him, stabbing into his head and neck. The black-clothed assassin barely managed to take 5 steps before he fell to the ground with a plop. He lay on the ground and twitched for a while before he breathed his last. After all, his neck and the back of his head had been pierced by the sword qi, and those were fatal wounds. Fresh blood splattered on the grass, filling the air with a thick stench of blood. When Ji Tianxing saw that the black-clothed assassin was dead, he immediately retracted the 12-sword qi into his body and fell weakly onto the grass. Within a day, he had manipulated the sword qi in his body to fight twice. This greatly exhausted his mental and physical strength, and he was already on the verge of fainting. He closed his eyes and lay on the grass, feeling that every nerve in his body was exhausted. His head was so heavy that he just wanted to sleep. At this moment, the little ice fox flew out from the gloomy forest and landed beside Ji Tianxing. Just now, when Ji Tianxing was fighting with the black-clothed assassin, it saw that the situation was not good and quietly hid in the forest, waiting for the battle to end before coming out. There are many demonic beasts in the Tai mountain range that have a grudge against me. I didn't expect you to be hunted down by your enemies as well. Sigh. How are we going to escape in your current state? The little ice fox sighed and muttered, but its little paws were not idle. It hurriedly took out 2 small jade bottles from its bag and pushed them in front of Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing panted for a while and recovered a little of his strength. He hurriedly opened the small jade bottle and poured out a few elixirs to consume. He closed his eyes and lay down for another 15 minutes. When he heard the roars of demonic beasts coming from all directions, he forced his exhausted body to stand up shakily. The stench of blood on the grass will attract the demonic beasts. We should leave now, he said in a weak voice and carried the bag and the blood dragon sword on his back. With heavy steps, he walked into the darkness. In the next few hours, Ji Tianxing endured his injuries and hurried on with his journey while gritting his teeth. With the help of the little ice fox, he was always able to avoid those dangerous demonic beasts in advance, as well as some warriors who were searching for the red star flower in the mountains. Along the way, there were scares but no mishaps. However, his mental and physical strength were exhausted. Every time he went over a mountain, he had to rest for 15 minutes. During this time, he also ate elixirs and dry rations twice. The long, dark night finally passed. When the first ray of light shone in the morning, Ji Tianxing finally let out a long sigh of relief. He found a cave in the mountains and hid in it to recuperate and rest. He first bandaged the wounds on his body and then circulated his energy to heal the injuries in his body. After treating his injuries, he rested in the cave for another 4 hours. When it was noon, Ji Tianxing finally recovered his strength and 60% of his physical strength. He then left the cave with the little ice fox and rushed towards the exit of the Tai mountain range. After he went over 4 mountains in a row, it was almost evening. He finally returned to the exit of the mountain range and entered the lush valley. When Ji Tianxing was crossing the valley, he met a few warriors who were entering the mountains. These people were all here for the red star flower. Their minds were filled with thoughts of how to find and snatch the red star flower. When they brushed past Ji Tianxing, they only glanced at him casually and did not stop at all. But they would never have thought that the red star flower had been picked long ago and was in Ji Tianxing's possession. When night fell, Ji Tianxing quietly returned to Tai town. The town, which had been bustling with noise a few days ago, was quiet at this time and had returned to its usual desolation. After all the warriors who came to look for the red star flower had entered the Tai mountain range. Ji Tianxing did not return to the Fortune Inn, nor did he look for his frost and snow-chasing wind horse. because he knew that the people who wanted to assassinate him and the assassins of the blood-clothed tower must be watching the fortune in. The black-clothed assassin who had tried to assassinate him in the mountains must also be from the blood-clothed tower. He was just wondering in his heart who had hired the blood-clothed tower's assassins to assassinate him. Regarding this question, he vaguely had an answer in his heart, but he was not sure yet. In his current situation, it was impossible for him to investigate this matter. The best choice was of course to return to the imperial city immediately. That night, Ji Tianxing got a horse in the town and left Taiyi town overnight. For the next 3 days, he galloped on his horse and rushed to the imperial city without stopping under the night and the sky. After a bumpy journey of 2,000 miles, he finally rushed back to the Ji mansion in the morning of the 3rd day. After returning to the Ji mansion, Ji Tianxing did not have time to report the news to his father and went directly to the breeze courtyard. He told Huan that he would be in seclusion for a few days and that no one should disturb him. Then he entered the secret chamber and prepared to use the power of the red star flower to condense the sword embryo. In the dark secret chamber, the vital energy gathering array was activated and was absorbing the chi of heaven and earth from all directions and gathering it in the center of the array. Ji Tianxing sat cross-legged in the array and held a sandalwood box with both hands. Looking at the 6 silver petals in the box, a gratified smile appeared on his face. His eyes were filled with anticipation. In the past 10 days, he had desperately rushed more than 4,000 miles and almost lost his life several times when he encountered life-threatening situations. Now that he had the red star flower, the running and danger of the past 10 days were all worth it. He could finally condense the sword embryo. I've been waiting for this day for too long, looking for your support and recommendation tickets. I'm begging everyone. Chapter 43. Ever since he started cultivating the sword heart, Ji Tianxing had been looking forward to this day when he could condense a sword embryo. With his current strength at the 9th level of the body refinement realm, when he attacked with all his might, his combat power was comparable to a martial artist at the 1st or 2nd level of the true element realm. If he used his trump card and manipulated 12 streaks of sword chi to attack, he could even defeat a martial artist at the 3rd or 4th level of the true element realm. A normal martial artist at the 9th level of the body refinement realm would never be able to do that. This was the extraordinary part of the sword heart Dao. Ji Tianxing had yet to condense a sword embryo, but he already had such a powerful combat power. If he could successfully condense a sword embryo, how powerful would his combat power be? According to the description on the tombstone, only by condensing a sword embryo can one be considered to have stepped into the sword heart Dao and truly enter the world of sword Dao. After I condense a sword embryo, I will be able to embark on a unique sword Dao. Ji Tianxing murmured in a low voice. His expression and eyes were incomparably firm. Success or failure depends on this. He took out 6 red star petals from the box and held them in his palm. He opened his mouth and took a deep breath. The 6 petals immediately turned into streaks of silver light and entered his mouth. Suddenly, a surge of majestic energy exploded in his stomach and rushed to his limbs and bones. Ji Tianxing's face instantly turned red. He felt as if a volcano had erupted in his body. His body immediately became boiling hot and he was drenched in sweat. White steam even rose from his body. T. I was too impatient. I took 6 petals at once. I'm afraid my body can't withstand such a terrifying medicinal power. Ji Tianxing cursed in his heart, but there was nothing he could do. Now that things had come to this, he could only grit his teeth and endure it. He hurriedly guided the scorching energy in his body to the meridians in his body. The red star flower grew in the mountains for 60 years and absorbed the essence of the sun, moon, and stars for 60 years. Of course, its energy was majestic and violent. The power of the stars was unfathomable and powerful. Human martial artists did not dare to absorb it. With the weak body of a human, they could only absorb the milder chi of heaven and earth to cultivate. But now, the energy that the red star flower had accumulated for 60 years exploded in Ji Tianxing's body. How could he withstand it? Tsk. Kai. After a short while, Ji Tianxing's sweat was pouring down like rain, but it was evaporated into steam by the scorching high temperature, giving rise to puffs of white mist. The extreme pain caused all the muscles in his body to twitch and his bones to emit cracking sounds. His entire body seemed to be distorted and deformed. He could even clearly sense the vast medicinal strength of the scarlet meteorite flower raging within his body and madly destroying his meridians. This caused him both extreme pain and extreme anxiety. Initially, he wanted to consume the red star flower to strengthen his meridians, but he didn't expect that his weak meridians would be completely destroyed, broken and twisted into a mess. What should he do? How was he going to cultivate in the future? Could it be that his martial arts foundation was completely destroyed and he could only be a cripple for the rest of his life? Ji Tianxing's heart was filled with a strong sense of unwillingness and anger. He tried his best to circulate his energy to disperse and guide the vast medicinal efficacy of the scarlet meteorite flower. However, when he managed to disperse the medicinal efficacy of the scarlet meteorite flower, guiding it into dozens of scorching torrents and spreading it to every part of his body, the situation became even worse. Earlier on, the medicinal efficacy of the scarlet meteorite flower had only destroyed his meridians. Now that it had spread to his limbs and bones, it had destroyed all the meridians in his body. Ji Tianxing was filled with despair. He was so angry that he almost vomited blood. However, he was already powerless to stop the medicinal efficacy of the scarlet meteorite flower. He could only allow the meridians in his body to be destroyed. Phut! He felt a warm sensation in his throat. He couldn't help but open his mouth and spit out a mouthful of hot blood. Following that, the skin all over his body started to crack. Numerous cracks and wounds appeared and countless drops of blood seeped out from them. It's over. My physical body can't withstand the medicinal efficacy. Am I going to explode and die? Ji Tianxing screamed in his heart. His consciousness started to become hazy and blurry. In just a short few minutes, his mental and physical strength were completely exhausted. Intense fatigue surged from the depths of his soul and he was about to fall asleep. Am I going to die? But I can't accept this. I have yet to avenge the Ling family. I have yet to clear my name as a useless person. I have yet to eliminate the Ji family's internal problems. I have yet to heal my father's injuries. The intense unwillingness in his heart made Ji Tianxing's willpower stubbornly hold on. Although he wasn't unconscious, his consciousness was muddled and he was on the verge of being half asleep. He couldn't even control his own body. He could only sit stiffly in the array and allow the medicinal efficacy of the scarlet meteorite flower to wreak havoc in his body. He didn't know how much time had passed. It could have been a day or a month. His consciousness started to wake up slowly. He realized that the burning pain in his body had disappeared. The violent and scorching medicinal efficacy of the scarlet meteorite flower seemed to have calmed down. He slowly lowered his head and looked at his body. I am not dead yet. I am still alive. Not only was he not dead, but his physical body was also in perfect condition. Ji Tianxing was instantly energized. His eyes lit up with the flames of hope. As long as he was alive, there was still hope. Although his entire body was sore and numb, he could still feel the tearing pain left behind after his meridians were destroyed. However, he endured the pain and lowered his head to size up his body. The black robe he was wearing was covered in a layer of blood and dirt. It had actually become stiff like a piece of mud. He saw that the bloodstains on his arms and legs were actually black. His entire body was also covered in a thick layer of dirt. How could this be? Why was the blood I vomited and the blood that flowed out from my wounds black? Ji Tianxing was filled with doubts and couldn't figure it out for now. At this moment, he suddenly felt a numbing sensation all over his body. It was unbearably itchy. However, his entire body was sore and numb. He couldn't move at all. It was wishful thinking to reach out and scratch the itch. Ji Tianxing could only endure the numbness and itchiness and calmly sense the situation in his body. Soon, he realized that the damaged and twisted meridians in his body were actually healing rapidly. The majestic medicinal efficacy of the scarlet meteorite flower was still dormant in his body. It actually turned into countless icy cold streams and wrapped around his meridians. The messy meridians were actually recovering rapidly under the nourishment of the cool medicinal efficacy. Ji Tianxing was stunned. After a while, he recovered and immediately guessed the reason. I understand now. I see. The scarlet meteorite flower is indeed a spirit herb. It actually has such miraculous effect. Haha, is this one of the legendary Marshall Dow's strange realms, destruction before establishment? In this world, legends said that there were many kinds of Marshall Dow's strange realms that could rapidly increase a martial artist's strength or change a martial artist's talent. For example, bone marrow cleansing, rebirth, destruction before establishment, yin and yang fusion, unity of heaven and man, and so on. They were all Marshall Dow's strange realms. However, although the effects of Marshall Dow's strange realms were miraculous, they would only appear on top geniuses or martial artists who had obtained great opportunities. Ji Tianxing's current situation was precisely the destruction before establishment in Marshall Dow's strange realms. Originally, his meridians were the same as ordinary martial artists. This limited his future achievements in Marshall Dow. Even if he was extraordinarily talented and had extremely high comprehension, a genius who far surpassed ordinary martial artists. However, he could at most reach the origin core realm in this lifetime before his potential was exhausted. But it was different now. The medicinal efficacy of the scarlet meteorite flower destroyed his meridians and helped him rebuild them. That's right. It was rebuilding his meridians and not strengthening them. After rebuilding his meridians, he had even more powerful potential and talent. His future achievements in Martial Dao would definitely be extraordinary. I'll continue to update today. There are a total of 4 chapters. Brothers and sisters, please support me by bookmarking and recommending me. Everyone can also leave a comment. Remember to leave a 5-star review. Please, brothers. Chapter 44. Ji Tianxing had read many martial arts manuals and understood the wonders of martial arts. It was a pity that martial arts was like a legend to him, unreachable. He never dared to imagine that one day, he would encounter a martial arts wondrous realm, destruction followed by re-establishment. He knew the extraordinary effects of destruction followed by re-establishment. Of course, he was excited and his eyes shone brightly. Destruction followed by re-establishment. Previously, my energy center was destroyed and I couldn't return to the true energy realm. I was the biggest laughingstock in Qingyun country. But from today onwards, I have potential that ordinary people can't reach. I will definitely have greater martial arts achievements and become an even more dazzling genius than before. Breaking out of the cocoon and becoming a butterfly, soaring to the sky. After a long time, Ji Tianxing finally calmed down. He calmed his heart and felt the changes in his meridians. He watched as the red meteorite flower reconstructed his meridians. No wonder so many forces and experts want to get their hands on the red meteorite flower. Such a spiritual herb that seizes the fortune of heaven and earth and gathers the essence of the sun and moon is really rare. The sun represents the yang while the moon represents the yin. The combination of the sun and the moon is the combination of yin and yang. That's why it has such a miraculous effect. When I first consumed the red meteorite flower, the yang potency destroyed my meridians. Now, the yin potency is reconstructing my meridians. In that case, the martial arts wondrous realm I have today is not only destruction followed by re-establishment but also the combination of yin and yang. At the thought of this, Ji Tianxing's eyes flashed with astonishment. He was even more surprised. Just the destruction before establishment realm of the martial way alone was enough to make him a martial way genius. If he had the combination of yin and yang, which was even rarer, wouldn't he become a top genius? Ji Tianxing was excited and full of anticipation for the future. He believed that the day of revenge and cleansing his humiliation was not far away. However, all of this was based on the fact that he could condense the sword embryo. Once the sword embryo was formed, he could look forward to the unparalleled sword Dao and his future would be bright. If he couldn't condense the sword embryo, all of his fantasies and expectations would just be an illusion. Time flew by and 12 hours passed quickly. Ji Tianxing's numbness disappeared and his meridians were completely reconstructed. The majestic medicinal power of the red starflower also lay dormant in his body, filling his limbs and bones, slowly strengthening his physical body. He tried to cultivate and absorb the qi of heaven and earth in the array formation. As expected, The boundless chi of heaven and earth entered his body like small streams flowing into a great river. After the reconstruction, his meridians had become wider and more resilient, allowing him to circulate his ki without any hindrance. If his meridians were like small streams in the past, then his current meridians were like rivers. Great. With the current strength of my meridians, there is at least an 80% chance that I will succeed if I channel the sword chi and condense the sword embryo. After Ji Tianxing was done with his preparations, he could not wait to circulate his energy to control the sword chi and try to condense the sword embryo. Earlier in the Taiyi mountain range, he'd forced the sword chi out of his body many times to fight, so he was already very familiar with controlling the 12 strands of sword chi. Now, he was controlling the sword chi to enter his meridians and swim towards his dantian. Not only were the reconstructed meridians wider, they were also tougher, enough to withstand the sharp and fierce sword chi. However, when the sword chi swam in his meridians, he still felt a piercing pain. But this level of pain was not a problem for him. After 15 minutes, Ji Tianxing successfully moved the sword chi from his huizong acupoint to his dantian. The toothpick-like faint golden sword chi floated in the black hole in his dantian, calm and steady. He had finally taken the first step to success. Ji Tianxing was in high spirits. He circulated the sword chi from his Yangkai acupoint to enter his meridians and flow towards his dantian. After 15 minutes, the second sword chi reached his dantian and floated in the black hole. Subsequently, Ji Tianxing activated the third, fourth, and fifth strands of sword chi. 6 hours had passed. The sword chi from his 12 acupoints had all gathered in the black hole in his dantian. He was only one step away from success. The last step was to fuse the 12 strands of sword chi and condense the sword embryo. Ji Tianxing was neither arrogant nor rash. He carefully and steadily circulated the way of the heart of the sword and started to fuse the sword chi. This process was very difficult and did not allow for the slightest mistake. He had enough patience and perseverance to fuse the sword chi one after another and condense the embryonic form of the sword embryo. The secret chamber was silent and time passed quietly. After 16 hours, he finally fused the 12 strands of sword chi and condensed them into a small golden sword the size of a little finger. The sword embryo was finally condensed successfully. From now on, this small golden sword would be the source of his power, his dantian. He had finally laid the foundation of the way of the heart of the sword and successfully stepped into the door of the supreme sword principle. He was not far from the way of the heart of the sword. At this moment, Ji Tianxing's emotions were surging and his blood was boiling. He revealed a gratified smile. He had endured so much humiliation and experienced so many life and death situations, but it was all worth it. Ji Tianxing stopped and ended his closed-door cultivation. He forced himself to endure the weakness in his body and the hunger in his stomach as he walked out of the secret chamber. After returning to his room, he hurriedly called for his maid, Huan-Er. Huan-Er opened the door and entered. When she saw Ji Tianxing's appearance, she was shocked. "Eldest young master, you've only been in closed-door cultivation for 2 days. How did you become like this?" She saw that Ji Tianxing's hair was messy like a chicken's nest. The black robe on his body was covered with blood and stains. His face and arms were also full of black mud. His miserable appearance was similar to that of a beggar who had not bathed for many years. Ji Tianxing was in a good mood. He smiled and waved his hand. "Huan-Er, don't ask. Quickly prepare hot water. I want to bathe and change my clothes. Also, go to the kitchen and prepare a table of food. Young master is starving." Huan-Er suppressed the doubts in her heart and did not ask any more questions. She hurriedly prepared hot water and food. After 2 hours, Ji Tianxing washed off the dirt on his body and changed into a clean set of clothes. He returned to his handsome and elegant appearance. Moreover, his physical body had been cleansed by the red star flower's medicinal power. His body had become more well-proportioned and perfect. His skin was also sparkling like jade. When Huan-Er served him the meal, her eyes always secretly glanced at him. Her face was slightly red and she secretly thought, "Why is it that after 2 days of closed-door cultivation, young master is not only refreshed and in a good mood, but even his skin has become so beautiful?" She could also feel that the confident temperament of the young master had returned. In fact, he was even more glowing than when he was the #1 genius in the imperial city. Although the large table of food was quickly disappearing, she felt that the young master's eating movements were more elegant and imposing than before. After a while, Ji Tianxing finished the entire table of food. Only then did he leave with satisfaction. After leaving Cool Breeze Courtyard, he rushed to Second Courtyard's martial arts hall to test his current strength. Chapter 45. It was noon. The scorching sun hung high in the sky and the air was hot and dry. The square outside the martial arts hall was empty. The Ji family disciples would not practice martial arts under the scorching sun. Ji Tianxing stepped into the martial arts hall. Seeing that there was no one in the hall, he walked to the high platform in the corner. Looking at the engraved stone pillar in front of him, he felt a little uneasy. Although he had condensed the sword embryo, the path of the sword heart was different from that of ordinary people. It was unheard of. He wasn't sure if his current strength had reached the true energy realm. Only by using the psychic stone pillar could he prove his conjecture. After taking a deep breath, he pressed his palm on the stone pillar and activated the primordial qi in his body. Suddenly, the golden sword embryo released a powerful primordial qi that went through his palm and into the psychic stone pillar. The black lines on the stone pillar reacted and lit up with 2 crimson rays. The crimson rays represented the true energy realm and the 2 lines represented the second level. True energy realm second level? Ji Tianxing immediately raised his eyebrows and revealed an incredulous look. His heartbeat also accelerated a little. I guessed right. The sword embryo is my dantian. I have condensed the sword embryo, which is equivalent to the true energy realm, but why did I skip true energy realm level 1 and reach true energy realm level 2 when I just condensed the sword embryo? His heart was filled with shock and disbelief. No matter who it was, to advance from the body refining realm to the true energy realm, they would first reach true energy realm level 1. After diligent training, they could advance to level 2, then level 3, level 4. This was common knowledge in martial arts. Even a 7- or 8-year-old child knew it. However, Ji Tianxing had directly jumped from body refining realm level 9 to true energy realm level 2, breaking this common knowledge. How could he not be shocked? After a while, Ji Tianxing retracted his palm and calmed down. He frowned and thought for a while, then guessed the reason. A true energy realm level 1 martial artist usually has to train hard for 2 years and accumulate enough primordial qi to advance to level 2. I have cultivated the path of the sword heart and condensed the sword embryo. The primordial qi in my body is many times stronger than normal martial artists. That must be why I jumped to level 2. This is because the path of the sword heart is extraordinary and the red star flower helped me reconstruct my meridians and increase my cultivation. Ji Tianxing was relieved. Now that his strength had been verified by the psychic stone pillar, the last trace of hesitation in his heart had vanished. From today onwards, he would cultivate the sword heart Tao with all his might and advance forward courageously. After leaving the martial arts hall, he prepared to return to the breezy courtyard. Along the way, he suddenly thought. After I came back, I locked it in the room. I didn't ask Huan to take care of it. I don't know how it is now. Back in the room, he closed the door and opened a wooden cabinet in the corner. He opened the door and saw the ice fox curled up in the cupboard, sleeping soundly. Wake up, little fox. I brought you something nice to eat. As he spoke, he extended his finger and poked the little ice fox's head. The ice fox opened its eyes and glanced at him casually, then looked at the fruit in the basket. Leave it there. I'll eat it when I'm hungry. Its tone was a little lazy. After it finished speaking, it lay down and went back to sleep. Ji Tianxing frowned and looked at it carefully. The ice fox's fur was shiny and it was full of energy. It was not as listless and hungry as he had imagined. Ji Tianxing coldly snorted, pointed at it and asked, Little fox, tell me honestly, have you been stealing food these past 2 days? The ice fox opened its eyes and whispered, I only went to the kitchen to eat a roasted chicken. Old Ji, don't make a fuss, okay? Ji Tianxing did not believe it. He sneered, haha. Look at the oil on your mouth. Are you sure you ate one? The ice fox raised its head and smiled at him. Okay. I admit it. I ate a total of 46 roasted chickens these 2 days. But, old G, your house is so extravagant. It's not a big deal for me to eat a few roasted chickens when I'm hungry, right? It glanced at Ji Tianqing's face and whispered, Old Ji, you can't be so stingy, right? Ji Tianqing frowned and said unhappily, It's not a big deal for you to eat secretly. I'm just worried that you'll cause trouble in the mansion. That's right. Tell me honestly. Did you cause any trouble these 2 days? The ice fox was speechless. Its silver eyes rolled around. It was obvious that it was going to lie. Ji Tianqing saw through its thoughts. He sneered and asked, Tell me, what did you do? The ice fox shrank its body and pretended to be timid. Old Ji, don't be nervous. I was bored. I peeked at a few maids bathing and glanced at a few guards practicing their swordsmanship. You perverted fox. How dare you do such a shameless thing? Ji Tianqing was so angry that he laughed. He raised his hand and was about to slap it. The ice fox quickly shrank into the corner of the cupboard. In a hurry, it explained, Old Ji, calm down. We're all girls. It's not a big deal to look at them. It's not like I'll get pregnant. What did you say? Ji Tianqing's hand stopped in mid-air. Nothing. The ice fox waved its paws and changed the topic. Old Ji, don't always call me a little fox. It sounds like I'm really a fox. You can call me Qian Yu, Qian, Yu, or whatever. Also, you promised to protect me and take care of me. How can you make me hide in the cupboard? I also want to live in a spacious and comfortable house. I also want a lot of delicious food. Ji Tianqing's anger dissipated. He nodded and said, Qian Yu? Are you sure you want such a girly name? I'll just call you Qian. You stay here and rest well. Don't run around. I'll find a place for you to stay. After comforting the ice fox, he left the breezy courtyard and went to look for his father, Ji Changkong. When he saw his father, Ji Changkong was handling business matters in the study. When he saw Ji Tianqing enter the study in high spirits, the tiredness on Ji Changkong's face dissipated and was replaced by a heartfelt smile. Tianqing, you're done with your seclusion? How was it? Was the journey to the Taiyi Mountains to look for the red star flower smooth? Did you get the red star flower? Ji Tianqing walked to his father's side. After bowing, he sat down and started chatting with his father. Father, although there were many twists and turns and dangers on this trip to the Taiyi Mountains, I survived them all. I've got the red star flower. After 2 days of seclusion, I've refined all of its medicinal power. Now, I've recovered from my dantian and returned to the true energy realm. When he heard the news, Ji Changkong's face lit up with joy. He could not help but say, Good. That's great. Tianqing, you've returned to the past. You didn't let me down. Chapter 46. Ji Changkong did not linger on power and wealth. His life's work and hopes were pinned on Ji Tianqing. When Ji Tianqing's cultivation was crippled, Ji Changkong was extremely worried and angry. His hair turned grey overnight, and his internal injuries relapsed, causing him to vomit blood. Now, Ji Tianqing had finally returned to the true energy realm. How could he not be overwhelmed with emotions? How could he not be excited? After a long time, Ji Changkong's emotions calmed down. He looked thoughtful and said in a deep voice, Tianqing, although you have returned to the true energy realm, this news should be kept a secret for the time being. If our enemies know that you have recovered your strength, they will not be able to sleep and eat in peace. They will definitely do everything they can to deal with you. Ji Tianqing nodded and said with a dignified expression, Father is right. I came to you today to report this matter. When I was in Tai Town, I was attacked by a black-clothed assassin and almost lost my life. I have investigated and found that the black-clothed assassin was from the blood-clothed tower. Ji Changkong's eyes suddenly turned cold and he shouted angrily, Blood-clothed tower? How dare they assassinate you? It's just an assassin organization in the cloud state. How dare they attack my Ji clan? After a pause, he said in a deep voice with murderous intent, Tianqing, you don't have to worry about this. I will send someone to investigate this matter and find out who is behind it. As for the blood-clothed tower, my G-clan's experts will flatten it within a month. Probably because my G-clan has been hiding our strength for so many years that the major forces in Qingyun country have forgotten the bloody means of my G-clan's Shadow Sword Hall. Hearing this, Ji Tianxing was also shocked, and a cold smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. If Shadow Sword Hall takes action, the blood-clothed tower will be destroyed. 10 years ago, Ji Changkong and Lord Sword Master fought at the ultimate sword peak and lost due to internal injuries. Since then, the Ji clan had kept a low profile. However, as one of the 4 great clans, how could any force provoke the Ji clan? If the Ji clan did not have strong martial strength, how could they occupy half of the forging world in Qingyun country? The Shadow Sword Hall was a secret weapon of the Ji clan. Ji Changkong was personally in charge of the Shadow Sword Hall. The 2 Vice Hall Masters under him were both experts at the 4th stage of the Profound Comprehending stage. The 36 Sword Envoys were all at the True Energy stage 9. This powerful secret team had secretly helped the Ji clan resolve countless crises and eliminated countless enemies. Ji Tianxing knew that his father was really angry, so he sent the Sword Shadow Hall to raise the blood-clothed tower to the ground. As for the person behind the scenes who hired the blood-clothed tower assassins to assassinate him, he was bound to surface soon. After discussing this matter, Ji Tianxing said with a grave expression, "Father, when I was in Tai Town, I encountered an even more troublesome matter. I met Xu Zifeng from the mysterious sword workshop in the eastern suburbs. He actually stole the workshop's mysterious level treasure sword and secretly traded it with someone. After I saw through this matter, Xu Zifeng and his entourage swore that they would rather die than confess. Xu Zifeng even committed suicide to avoid punishment." Ji Changkong's expression became gloomy again. He asked in a low voice, "Is there such a thing?" Xu Zifeng's strength is low, and he acts cautiously. He is also loyal to the Ji clan. Since he did such a thing, there must be someone behind him. The mysterious sword workshop in the eastern suburbs is under the control of second brother, Ji Rufeng. This matter must have something to do with him. Ji Changkong frowned and pondered for a moment. He then asked Ji Tianxing for a few more details. After getting the answer, he whispered in a low voice, "Could it be that I've been too active recently and pushed them too hard?" So he sent Xu Zifeng away from the imperial city and hid in Yunju to do the trade. "Tianxing, I'll investigate this matter immediately. I want to check the accounts of the workshop in the eastern suburbs and see what Ji Rufeng has been doing behind the scenes." Ji Tianxing nodded slightly and said with some concern, "Father, if second uncle is really disloyal, he will definitely fall out with you. You must pay attention to your safety. Also, I came here today for another matter." Ji Changkong asked, "Tell me, what is it?" "Father, among the heirlooms of our Ji clan, is there a top-grade mysterious level treasure called the 100 Treasures Brocade Pouch?" Ji Changkong was startled for a moment, then he revealed a gentle smile and nodded, "There is indeed such an item. This treasure is the fruit of your grandfather and 12 master blacksmiths' hard work. They spent 2 years of time and effort and used materials worth 8 million taels of silver. This item looks like a palm-sized brocade pouch on the surface, but there is actually a universe inside. There is a mysterious space that is as big as a study and can store many things. When this item was refined, even the imperial clan was tempted. The emperor even wanted to confer your grandfather the title of duke and give him a city in exchange for the 100 Treasures Brocade Pouch, but your grandfather refused." Speaking of the 100 Treasures Brocade Pouch, Ji Changkong's face was filled with pride. Ji Tianxing heard that the 100 Treasures Brocade Pouch was so precious and hesitated for a moment before asking, "Father, I want that 100 Treasures Brocade Pouch, I have an urgent need." He was racking his brains to think of an excuse to explain himself. He didn't expect Ji Changkong to agree without hesitation. "Tianxing, although the 100 Treasures Brocade Pouch is priceless and incomparably precious, if you want to use it, I will go get it for you." Seeing Ji Tianxing's strange expression, he patted Ji Tianxing's shoulder and smiled. "Tianxing, you don't need to explain anything. Father understands that you have your own plans and ideas. Not to mention a mere 100 Treasures Brocade Pouch, all of the Ji clan's wealth will be yours in the future." With that, Ji Changkong left the study and returned to the secret room in his residence to retrieve the 100 treasures brocade pouch. A quarter of an hour later, he brought the 100 treasures brocade pouch back to the study and handed it over to Ji Tianxing. He also told him how to use it. Ji Tianxing accepted the 100 treasures brocade pouch and thanked his father before bowing and leaving. After returning to his room in the breeze courtyard, he closed the door and carefully studied the 100 treasures brocade pouch. On the surface, this dark red 100 treasures brocade pouch was not much different from an ordinary pouch. Rich people would always have one hanging on their waist. However, in reality, the 100 treasures brocade pouch was made of a very special material. It was impervious to fire and water, and it would not be damaged by blades or axes. Moreover, after Ji Tianxing opened the 100 treasures brocade pouch, he saw that there was indeed a room as big as a study inside. There was nothing in the room, so he installed a bed, a table, and some bedding in the room. Then, he took out Qian Yu and threw it into the 100 treasures brocade pouch. Even though Qian Yu was knowledgeable and considered itself to be of noble status, after seeing such a wondrous 100 treasures brocade pouch, it was filled with shock and curiosity. It jumped up and down in the room as if it was having a lot of fun. It was very satisfied with this room and praised Ji Tianxing, which was a rare occurrence. Chapter 47. Although giving Qian Yu the priceless 100 treasures brocade pouch was a very extravagant thing to do. But to Ji Tianxing, this was undoubtedly the best choice. Bringing Qian Yu around all day was too eye-catching. After all, it was a sly and cunning fellow that could speak. After settling Qian Yu down, Ji Tianxing tied the 100 treasures brocade pouch to his belt and entered the secret chamber. Sitting in the middle of the yuan gathering array, he calmly pondered about his next cultivation. The sword embryo has been successfully condensed, and my strength has reached the second level of the true energy realm. Next, I should focus on cultivating and accumulating yuan qi according to the route carved on the second tombstone. The most important way for an ordinary true energy realm martial artist to increase their strength was to continuously cultivate and absorb the yuan qi of heaven and earth to transform it into true energy. The stronger the true energy accumulated in the energy center, the stronger one's strength would be. Ji Tianxing did not have an energy center and was different from ordinary martial artists. His cultivation method was also different. But the sword embryo was his energy center, and he had to absorb the yuan qi of heaven and earth to strengthen the sword embryo. The words carved on the second tombstone in Kenshin's tomb were the second level of the path of the sword. He needed to cultivate according to a specific route and continuously accumulate yuan qi to strengthen the sword embryo. Besides that, he also remembered the words carved on the third tombstone. It was also the cultivation method of the true energy realm. That was the third level of the path of the sword. It mentioned the 9 main meridians and the method to refine the sword meridians. This was different from the cultivation method of an ordinary true energy realm martial artist. Ji Tianxing thought for a while and decided to enter the Kenshin's tomb again to see if the words on the tombstone had changed. He closed his eyes and focused his consciousness on the black hole in his energy center. Swoosh! His consciousness was immediately swallowed by the black hole and entered the Kenshin's tomb. It was still a dark and cold space, surrounded by fog and filled with the aura of death. Ji Tianxing's consciousness condensed into a translucent human figure and floated forward, heading straight for the gigantic sword stele. After a while, he arrived at the pitch-black sword stele. He did not know if it was an illusion, but he felt that the sword stele's aura was sharper and more domineering. His strength had increased by several times, but he felt like his body was covered by needles when he was enveloped by the sword stele's sharp aura. He subconsciously raised his head to look at the sword stele and frowned. The words Tomb of the Sword God on the huge sword stele were actually faintly glowing with a blood-red light. But he clearly remembered that the last 2 times he came to the Tomb of the Sword God, he saw that the 4 words were grey. Moreover, he could clearly sense that the originally cold and deathly still sword stele actually had a trace of spirit energy surrounding it. Even though that trace of invisible spiritual qi was somewhat weak, it was real. Ji Tianxing felt a little strange and couldn't help but frown. How could this be? There is Yu to Yu. He suddenly remembered that in the Xianbing cave in the Taiyi Mountains, It was Kenshin's tomb that had saved his life and swallowed Chen Yu's life. At that time, he was very puzzled. Where did Chen Yu's power go when it was swallowed by the black hole? Now that he saw the changes in the sword steely and felt the invisible spirit chi surrounding it, he vaguely guessed the result. So, Chen Yu's life's power was most likely swallowed by this sword steely. This was only his guess and conjecture. He could not verify it for the time being. Forget it, let's talk about this later. Let's take a look at my cultivation method first. He turned and walked towards the 9 tombstones on the left side of the sword steely. The 9 black tombstones had not changed. They still stood in the wilderness, exuding an ancient aura. But Ji Tianxing found that the second tombstone had also become blank. The words engraved on it had disappeared. The second level of the Way of the Sword has also disappeared. Then my understanding should be correct. Next, I will follow the cultivation method and work hard to accumulate spirit chi and improve my strength. He looked at the third tombstone. The words on the tombstone were still there. This was the cultivation method of the third level of the Way of the Sword. Ji Tianxing studied it seriously for a while and confirmed that he had not understood it wrongly. He indeed had to use spirit chi to refine the 9 main meridians into a sword vein. When he finished cultivating the third level of the cultivation method, he should break through the vital energy realm and reach the mystic comprehending realm. Of course, that should be a long time in the future. He recalled the words about the Way of the Sword on the first tombstone. He could not help but sigh and murmured in a low voice. Although I have reached the second level of the Way of the Sword, I don't know when I can reach the state of having no sword in my hand and the sword in my heart. Just as he finished speaking, a deep, heavy, and ancient voice suddenly sounded in his ears. Lowly human, can actually cultivate the Way of the Sword. It was a deep voice that seemed to belong to a middle-aged man. His tone was full of surprise. Ji Tianxing was stunned and quickly turned his head to look behind him. Who's talking? The ancient voice resounded once more, and its tone was filled with arrogance and disdain. Human boy, with your talent, I'm afraid it's impossible for you to reach the 9th level of the Way of the Sword in this lifetime. It's wishful thinking to reach the state of the sword heart. However, Ji Tianxing wasn't angry. Instead, he stared at the black sword steely with a burning gaze. This time, he heard it clearly. The voice came from the black sword tombstone. You're talking. Who are you? The voice from the black sword tombstone was silent for a while. It seemed to be thinking or recalling. After a while, the voice sounded again. I am, the sword soul, the soul of the godly sword. Yes, I am the sword soul, the burial of heaven. Ji Tianxing's eyes widened. His heart was full of shock and disbelief. Sword soul? The burial of heaven? The Ji family was a family of blacksmiths, but he had never heard that a weapon had a soul and could think and speak. This was even more ridiculous than myths and legend. What's more, this sword soul was called the burial of heaven. Wasn't this too domineering? I've been here twice before, and this sword soul didn't move. Now that the sword tombstone has swallowed Chanxian's lifetime cultivation, it's surrounded by spiritual energy. The sword soul has appeared. Ji Tianxing thought for a while. Then, he asked tentatively, Sword soul, the burial of heaven, were you sleeping before? Did you wake up after swallowing Chanxian's lifetime cultivation? The burial of heaven was surprised. Oh! How can a lowly human possess such wisdom? Human boy, I didn't expect you to be able to guess this. Ha ha! Interesting little guy. The other party's tone was very arrogant. It was as if it was looking down on all living things. Ji Tianxing frowned slightly, but he didn't say anything. Because he knew that this sword soul, the burial of heaven, must have an extraordinary origin, he looked up at the black sword tombstone and asked again, Sword soul, the burial of heaven, you said that humans can't practice the Way of the Sword Heart? Can you tell me the origin and mystery of the Way of the Sword Heart? The burial of heaven said coldly, that little beast's cultivation is too weak. It can only wake me up for a short while. I don't have time to waste with you on the Way of the Sword Heart. Try to comprehend it yourself. What realm you can reach will depend on your luck. I'm going to continue sleeping. After that, the ancient and distant voice disappeared. Ji Tianxing called a few times. The burial of heaven didn't respond. He could only give up and leave the Kenshin's tomb. Swoosh! The grey fog space and the Kenshin's tomb immediately disappeared. His consciousness returned to his body. After calming down, he prepared to practice the second level of the Way of the Sword Heart. After activating the elemental gathering array, the chi of heaven and earth from all directions was attracted by the array and gathered in the secret room. Ji Tianxing glanced at the 4 big boxes in the corner of the secret room. He immediately remembered that the little Princess Ku had given him those things. They were cultivation resources worth 5 million taels of silver. There were more than a dozen origin-level cultivation techniques and sword Dao manuals. There were also many elixirs and materials. He took out 4 elemental condensing pills from one of the boxes. These were top-grade origin-level elixirs. They were most suitable for true energy realm martial artists. They could provide a large amount of true energy and quickly increase a martial artist's strength. After Ji Tianxing took the 4 elemental condensing pills, he began to cultivate the second level of the Way of the Sword Heart. The elemental condensing pills were quickly refined. Boundless true energy gushed out and flowed rapidly in his body. He focused on cultivating. He guided the true energy into his meridians and circulated it through his body according to a fixed route. Finally, it gathered in the sword embryo in his dantian. This was effective. The sword embryo was replenished by the true energy and began to grow stronger. Chapter 48. The night passed very quickly. The next morning, Ji Tianxing ended his cultivation and walked out of the secret chamber. His sword embryo had grown by 30%, and his cultivation had greatly improved. His strength had also increased by a lot. He had just finished his breakfast and was about to continue his closed-door cultivation when Huana suddenly came to report that little Princess Cuckoo was here again. Ji Tianxing was stunned for a moment, then his lips curled into a playful smile. Looking at the time, she has indeed returned to the imperial city. However, she went to the Taiyi mountain range to look for the red meteorite flower, but it was a wasted trip. I'm afraid she came today for this matter. As he thought about this, he walked to the courtyard to welcome Cuckoo's arrival. After a while, Ji Ku, who was wearing a light yellow dress, walked into the courtyard with an imperial guard. She was still dressed adorably today, but there was a hint of anger and tiredness on her face. She was pouting, obviously unhappy. Big brother Tianxing, I'm back. She greeted Ji Tianxing, entered the room, and sat down. She said in a low mood, Big brother Tianxing, I'm sorry to have made you wait for so long. I was a step too late and didn't manage to snatch the red meteorite flower. I've disappointed you. Ji Tianxing already knew the result, so of course he wasn't disappointed. He smiled and comforted her. It's okay, Cuckoo. I'm already very grateful for your concern. The little princess was still very depressed. She muttered angrily, It's all my uncle's fault. He's too despicable. He actually snatched the red meteorite flower. After he consumed the red meteorite flower, he went into closed-door cultivation for 2 days and actually repaired his dantian. His strength has reached the true energy realm. Ji Tianxing's expression changed, and he frowned. Cuckoo, your uncle snatched the red meteorite flower? You mean Luoyang King Jiling? Yes, who else could it be? The little princess nodded, and the expression on her face became even more depressed. Royal uncle is the same as my royal grandfather. His dantian was damaged, and he could not cultivate Shen Yuan for the rest of his life. He could only stay in the body refinement realm. He had long coveted the scarlet meteorite flower. He controls the Luo and Yang prefectures and has recruited so many experts. Of course, it would be easy for him to obtain the scarlet meteorite flower. It's a pity that I was a step too late. Otherwise, I would have definitely snatched the scarlet meteorite flower. Ji Tianxing silently listened to the little princess grumbling, but his heart was filled with shock and doubt. The fact that Luoyang King Jiling's dantian was innately damaged was no secret. Most people knew about it. It was reasonable for Jiling to want to use the red star flower to repair her damaged dantian. However, Ji Tianxing knew very well that there was only one red star flower. The people who had obtained the red star flower were him and Yun Yarrow, not little Prince Jiling. Therefore, when he heard the little princess's words, he immediately thought of Yun Yao. Could it be that Yun Yao gave the stamen of the red star flower to Jiling after taking it from me? When he thought of this, he felt inexplicably stifled. He probed the little princess and asked, "Cuckoo, how did you know about this? Where did your royal uncle get the red star flower? Was it given to him by someone?" The little princess was simple-minded and had complete trust in Ji Tianxing. Therefore, she did not notice anything strange. She answered truthfully, "Yesterday, there was news from the Spirit Fire Palace. Only then did I know that royal uncle had been cultivating in seclusion for 2 days. He had already repaired his dantian and reached the true energy realm. I guessed that he must have consumed the red star flower, so I went to the Spirit Fire Palace to question him. He admitted it himself that he had consumed the red star flower. As for the origin of the red star flower, he said that the experts under him had snatched it. After that, I also secretly investigated it. That was indeed the case. Many experts in the Spirit Fire Palace can testify." When he heard this, Ji Tianxing's expression became even more serious. The doubts in his heart grew even more. With Yun Yao's status, there's no way she would personally go to Taiyi mountain range to help the little prince snatch the red star flower. The little prince clearly did not obtain the red star flower, but he said that the experts under him had snatched it. He must be lying. But why would he lie and even announce this to the public? Could it be the little prince was only using the red star flower as an excuse to hide the real reason why he had repaired his dantian and reached the true energy realm? With Ji Tianxing's intellect, he was able to analyze the crux of the problem in a short period of time. When he guessed this point, a thought suddenly flashed through his mind. He remembered something. If the little prince did not consume the red star flower, then how did he repair his dantian? The God-seizing pearl. Yes, the God-seizing pearl has this effect. Perhaps, after Ling Yunfei dug out the God-seizing pearl from my body, she did not refine it and gave it to the little prince instead. The little prince had been hiding this all this time. When the red star flower appeared, he finally found an excuse to deliberately lie and release this news. If that's really the case, then besides Ling Yunfei, wouldn't the little prince, Ji Ling, also be involved in plotting against me? When he thought of this, Ji Tianxing felt a chill run down his spine. Unparalleled fury and murderous intent surged from his heart. He had already secretly decided that he would find a chance to test Ling Yunfei's abilities. Then his deductions and suspicions would be confirmed. At this moment, the little princess noticed that he had been silent and his expression was very gloomy. She could not help but ask, "Big brother Tianxing, what's wrong? Are you all right?" Ji Tianxing snapped out of his daze. He suppressed the fury and murderous intent in his heart and calmly shook his head. The little princess looked very guilty. She tugged at his arm and said softly, "Big brother Tianxing, I'm sorry. I didn't manage to snatch the red star flower and couldn't help you. But don't worry, big brother Tianxing. I'll think of other ways to help you. Don't be discouraged. I believe that there must be other ways to help you recover your abilities." Ji Tianxing nodded and revealed a trace of a smile. "Don't worry, Cuckoo. I won't give up so easily. Moreover, I'm already slowly recovering. Don't worry about me." Regarding the matter of him obtaining the red star flower and recovering his abilities of the true energy realm, of course, he had to keep it a secret. Although he trusted the little princess very much, this was his secret and he could not reveal it for the time being. The little princess chatted with him for a while and gave him a few words of concern before leaving with the guards. Ji Tianxing sent the little princess out of the cool breeze courtyard and returned to his room with a gloomy expression. He decided to quickly investigate the whereabouts of the God-seizing pearl and find a chance to test Ling Yunfei's abilities. If things were really as he guessed and the little prince and the Ling family joined hands to deal with him, then he would face unimaginable danger. Even the Ji family would be implicated. Ji Tianxing pondered for a while before taking out a pen and paper to personally write a letter. After sealing it with wax, he handed it to the guards at the entrance of the courtyard. "Send this letter to the Ling family. You must personally hand it to Ling Yunfei." "Understood." The middle-aged guard respectfully cupped his fists and accepted the order. He carefully kept the letter. Then he left the cool breeze courtyard and immediately rushed to the Ling family. Ji Tianxing returned to his room and entered the secret room to cultivate. He had already made an appointment with Ling Yunfei to meet alone at the plum garden in the western suburbs of the imperial city. At that time, he would test Ling Yunfei's abilities. But before that, he still had to cultivate for a few hours to increase his abilities, just in case. In the Ling family residence, in a quiet and elegant courtyard. Under the luxuriant banyan tree, a beautiful young girl and a white-robed youth were sitting opposite each other at the stone table. The young girl in a light green dress was Ling Yunfei, and the white-robed youth with a feminine temperament was the little prince. The two of them chatted while drinking tea. Ling Yunfei let out a charming laugh from time to time. Suddenly, the young guard at the entrance of the courtyard walked into the courtyard and quickly walked to Ling Yunfei's side. After bowing, the young guard handed over a letter with a respectful expression. "Eldest miss, the Ji family sent someone to deliver this letter. They said that they must give it to you." "Oh, a letter from the Ji family?" Ling Yunfei raised her eyebrows and a playful sneer appeared on her lips. She reached out and took the letter. There were no words on the letter. She glanced at the little prince before opening the letter. There was not much content in the letter. It was only 3 short sentences, but the name on the letter was Ji Tianxing. After Ling Yunfei finished reading the letter, the sneer on her face deepened. Seeing the little prince's questioning gaze, she took the initiative to explain. "Ji Tianxing, that trash, asked me to meet him at the plum garden in the western suburbs tonight. He said that he has something to discuss with me. Hihi, this guy went to the Taiyi mountain range and didn't die there. He even dares to ask me to meet him? He's really looking for death. Tonight, I will personally deal with him, once and for all." The little prince raised his eyebrows and reminded her. "Fei, don't let your guard down. Ji Tianxing is not someone to be underestimated. How about I go with you?" Ling Yunfei smiled and shook her head, refusing. "He's just a trash who will never return to the true energy realm. What threat can he be? I can easily kill him. I'm about to get my revenge. Brothers, please save it and vote for me. Please, everyone." Chapter 49. The night was dark and the Ji residence was silent. Everyone in the courtyards and houses had already gone to bed. Only the guards were still patrolling the area. Ji Tianxing, who was dressed in black, quietly walked out of Qingfeng courtyard and left through the back door of the Ji residence. After half a day of closed-door cultivation, his sword embryo's power had increased by 40% and his power had improved. He sped towards the west gate under the night sky. His body was as light as a swallow and his speed was as fast as the wind. There was no curfew in the imperial city of Green Cloud. After Ji Tianxing passed through the west gate of the imperial city, he did not take the main road outside the city. Instead, he took a small path to the plum garden. The plum garden in the western suburbs covered an area of 1,000 square meters. It was the largest plum blossom viewing spot outside the imperial city. Every winter, the nobles in the imperial city would go to the plum garden to admire the plum blossoms. However, it was April now. There were only plum blossoms left in the garden. There was no scenery to admire. During the day, the plum garden was deserted. At night, the plum garden was even quieter. Even the wandering ghosts were not willing to enter. The reason why Ji Tianxing chose this place was, firstly, to avoid being noticed, and secondly, to test Ling Yunfei's strength. He knew that Ling Yunfei had always wanted to kill him. Therefore, he believed that Ling Yunfei would definitely attend the appointment after receiving the letter. After arriving at the plum garden, Ji Tianxing went straight to the peak of the mountain and entered a manor. This manor was called the Plum Manor. During the season when the plum blossoms were in full bloom, people who came to admire the plum blossoms would gather and rest here. However, the Plum Manor was completely dark now. Not even a shadow could be seen. Ji Tianxing and Ling Yunfei had agreed to meet in the Plum Manor. He looked around the manor and then leaped 20 feet into the air, landing on the roof of the main hall. This place was the highest. If it was daytime, he could see everything within a 10-mile radius. Even if it was a moonless night, Ji Tianxing could still observe the surroundings of the Plum Manor while hiding on the roof. If Ling Yunfei brought an expert with her, he would be able to detect it in advance and take precautions. Although the possibility of this was not high, he had to be cautious. Time passed by quietly. An hour passed by very quickly. 9 o'clock had arrived. Ji Tianxing crouched on the roof, his sharp eyes looking outside the Plum Manor's gate, waiting patiently. Sure enough, after a short while, light footsteps could be heard outside the door. A slim black figure quietly crossed the gate and entered the courtyard of the Plum Manor. This figure was dressed in black and wore a veil. However, Ji Tianxing was too familiar with this figure. He immediately recognized that she was Ling Yunfei. Ling Yunfei, who was dressed in black, held a sword tightly and looked around with sharp eyes. Seeing that there was no ambush in the plum plantation, she lowered her voice and said, "Ji Tianxing, I'm here, you can come out now." Ji Tianxing observed from above for a moment. Seeing that Ling Yunfei didn't bring any attendants or guards, and that there was no ambush around the Plum Manor, he showed himself to meet her. He jumped down from the roof and landed lightly in front of Ling Yunfei, about 20 feet away. He took off his mask and looked at Ling Yunfei with cold eyes. His mouth curled up into a sneer. "Ling Yunfei, you really kept your promise and came alone." Ling Yunfei also took off her veil and said sarcastically, "I was afraid that if I brought my guards, you would have run away in fear and wouldn't dare to show up. Besides, you're just a trash with a destroyed dantian. What's there to be afraid of?" Ji Tianxing frowned and a cold light flashed in his eyes. "Ling Yunfei, you're so confident and arrogant. Have you already refined the God-seizing pearl and got my blood and power?" Ling Yunfei's body shook and her expression changed slightly. She was secretly vigilant. "This bastard, he asked me to meet here tonight just to ask about the God-seizing pearl. Has he found out something?" The night was dark, and the change in her expression was hard to notice. She sneered calmly, "Haha, Ji Tianxing, do you still want to take back the God-seizing pearl?" "Of course not." Ji Tianxing shook his head and sneered, "I just want to see who you gave the God-seizing pearl to." As soon as he finished his words, he suddenly pounced on Ling Yunfei as fast as an arrow leaving the bow. While he was still in the air, he had already pulled out his blood dragon sword and slashed 3 blood-red sword lights at Ling Yunfei's head. Ling Yunfei didn't expect that Ji Tianxing would pull out his sword and attack her after saying 3 words. Where did his confidence and courage come from? Ling Yunfei immediately came back to her senses and pulled out her sword. She slashed a few cold lights at Ji Tianxing. Ding ding ding, the 2 swords collided 3 times in an instant, producing 3 crisp sounds, breaking the tranquility of the plum orchard. Ji Tianxing's blood dragon sword was bounced away and his body trembled as he took 3 steps back. Ling Yunfei's face was also pale and she took 4 steps back before stopping. Her sore and numb shoulders and the cracked web between her thumb and forefinger made her realize an unbelievable problem. You've recovered to the true energy realm?" Ling Yunfei's eyes widened and revealed an unbelievable expression. She couldn't help but exclaim, "So what if I am?" Ji Tianxing sneered mockingly. "You haven't improved at all. How disappointing." Then he swung his sword at Ling Yunfei again and attacked her fiercely with the 10 mysterious swordplay. In an instant, more than 10 dazzling sword lights flashed and cut through the dark night, enveloping Ling Yunfei. The biting cold energy and cold light rushed at Ling Yunfei, causing her to feel more pressure. She could only retreat. At this moment, she even had an illusion in her heart. She seemed to have seen Ji Tianxing from half a month ago, the #1 genius of the Imperial City who was at the 7th level of the true energy realm. Ding ding dang dang, sounds of metal colliding rang out again. Ling Yunfei was forced back 8 steps, but the sword still left a wound on her right arm. Blood gushed out from the finger-long wound and soaked her clothes, but she didn't have time to care. Ji Tianxing's expression was cold. He didn't say a word and attacked with all his strength. Another 9 dazzling sword lights splashed out. Ding 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 ding. Ling Yunfei gritted her teeth and blocked the 7th sword, but she couldn't block the 8th sword. Clang! The sword in her hand was knocked out of her hand and fell outside the courtyard wall. When the 9th sword light came, she had no power to resist. Swoosh! The sword light instantly pierced her lower abdomen and penetrated her dantian. The extremely sharp blood dragon sword and sword chi directly destroyed her dantian. The true energy that she had painstakingly cultivated for several years instantly collapsed and dissipated. Not only did Ling Yunfei lose to Ji Tianxing's sword, her dantian was destroyed on the spot and her cultivation was crippled. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, blood for blood. Ji Tianxing withdrew his blood dragon sword and stood with the sword in his hand, staring coldly at Ling Yunfei. Ling Yunfei retreated to the corner of the courtyard with a pale face. She bent over in pain and blood flowed out from the corner of her mouth. She leaned against the courtyard wall and covered her blood-stained abdomen with both hands. She stared at Ji Tianxing with eyes full of fear. Impossible. This is impossible. You actually destroyed my dantian and crippled my cultivation. Ah! Ling Yunfei screamed crazily, her face filled with fear and despair. Before coming to the plum garden, she was full of confidence. She thought that she could kill Ji Tianxing tonight and get rid of all future troubles. However, she never thought that Ji Tianxing's strength would actually recover in such a strange manner. In the end, she was defeated by Ji Tianxing's sword. Her cultivation foundation was crippled and she became a cripple from then on. She couldn't believe or accept such a shocking turn of events. Chapter 50. Fear, despair, and unwillingness filled Ling Yunfei's heart and soul. She sat weakly in the corner of the courtyard with her back against the brick wall. Her face was covered in blood and tears. Ji Tianxing stood in front of her with his sword in hand. Looking at her miserable appearance, he didn't feel the slightest bit of pity. In his heart, there was only relief, only joy. Ling Yunfei had treated him like this at the peak of Heaven Pavilion Mountain. She dug out the God-seizing pearl, destroyed his dantian, and even carried him to the Sky Pillar Sect's entrance exam while he was unconscious. She had turned him into a trash that everyone ridiculed. After that, she arrogantly came to break off the engagement and spread the news. How vicious was Ling Yunfei's method? It was so vicious that it made one's hair stand on end. Ji Tianxing had only crippled her. That was already very merciful. He said indifferently, Ling Yunfei, you haven't improved at all. You're still at the 5th level of the true energy realm. You didn't refine the God-seizing pearl. Speak. Who did you give the God-seizing pearl to? Who ordered you to murder me? Ling Yunfei raised her head to look at him. Her blood-stained face suddenly revealed a disdainful sneer. Hihi, so what if you've recovered your strength? You're still not on the same level as him. You're just the young master of a rich man in the countryside. And he has great ambitions. One day, he will become a true dragon that soars in the 9 heavens. Ji Tianxing's face darkened. His eyes flashed with murderous intent. Swoosh. He waved the blood dragon sword and pointed it at Ling Yunfei's heart. Who is he? Speak. Otherwise, you'll die. The sneer on Ling Yunfei's face froze. Fear flashed through her eyes. She stubbornly raised her head and screamed angrily, Ji Tianxing, you want to kill me? You beast with a human face. Did you forget? Back then, you said that you loved me with no regrets and that you would protect me for the rest of your life. You are such a hypocritical and despicable hypocrite. Ji Tianxing's expression was still cold, his face full of disdain as he shouted, the person who said he loves you and wants to protect you is the Ji Tianxing that you used in the past. Not the current me. I treated you like a family member and took good care of you, but you destroyed my martial arts foundation and reputation. For a vicious woman like you, it would be too easy for me to kill you with my sword. Seeing his murderous aura, Ling Yunfei panicked. Her eyes were filled with fear. After a short silence, she suddenly made up her mind and looked up at Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing, even if you kill me, I will never tell you. Furthermore, even if I die, he will definitely avenge me. Ji Tianxing frowned and shouted coldly, if that's the case, then go to hell. Just as he held the blood dragon sword tightly and was about to pierce Ling Yunfei's heart, he suddenly heard a sharp sound. Whoosh, whoosh. 2 cold lights pierced through the night and shot towards the back of his head and neck like arrows. Hidden weapons. Ji Tianxing's heart skipped a beat. He subconsciously dodged to the side and leaped 20 feet away. The 2 concealed weapons immediately missed and hit the green brick wall of the courtyard, producing two crisp ding-ding sounds and sparks. At the same time, a figure jumped out from the darkness and rushed to Ling Yunfei's side. This figure carried Ling Yunfei, who was curled up in the corner, and jumped over the wall in a flash and went into the plum garden. Ji Tianxing hurriedly jumped over the courtyard wall as well. After landing on the ground, he looked around with a sharp gaze. However, that figure had already disappeared into the night. No one knew where it went. Ji Tianxing could tell that the figure was quite powerful. He must be an expert at LV7 true element realm or above. He did not chase after him. Even if he did, it would be useless. He could not catch up with him. He frowned and thought for a moment. Then, he sneered and turned to leave the plum garden. He walked down the mountain. Although that figure was dressed in black and had a veil covering his face, he was still able to see through it. Ji Tianxing could tell from the figure's body shape that it must be a young man who was tall and thin. Thinking of this, he vaguely had an answer in his heart. A black horse carriage was speeding on the official road in the western suburbs, heading straight for the west gate of the imperial city. In the dark carriage, Ling Yunfei was leaning against the corner. Her hands were covering her bleeding abdomen. Her face was pale and weak. There was another person sitting beside Ling Yunfei in the carriage. He was thinking silently about something. This person was a young man with a feminine temperament. He was wearing a black robe and took off his mask, revealing a handsome and fair face. Ling Yunfei was on the verge of fainting due to her serious injuries. She murmured weakly, "Little prince, I'm so cold. Can you hug me, please?" The little prince was indifferent. His face was as cold as ice as he was still thinking. Ling Yunfei was silent for a moment. Then, she said intermittently, "Little prince, Ji Tianxing, he has already recovered to true element realm. He's starting to suspect you and me. You have to be careful." Only then did the little prince gather his thoughts and a disdainful sneer appeared on his lips. "Me. So what if he recovers to true element realm? He's still not this prince's match. Fei, your dantian has been destroyed. Your martial arts foundation has been destroyed. You have no value to this prince anymore." Ling Yunfei's expression froze. Her face was full of astonishment. What? Little prince, you? The little prince looked at her with a smile, but his eyes were as cold as ice. Fei, you once said that you loved this prince more than yourself. You were willing to give up everything for this prince. Now, it's time for you to fulfill your promise. As he said that, he suddenly grabbed his sword and stabbed it into Ling Yunfei's heart. Ling Yunfei's eyes widened. Her face was full of fear and disbelief. She never would have thought that the little prince who had been so gentle and sweet to her would personally stab a sword into her heart. She glared at the little prince with a heart full of unwillingness. Blood kept flowing out of her mouth as she weakly asked, "Why?" The little prince still had a smile on his face. He reached out to touch her face. His movements were as gentle as always and filled with tenderness. "This will be the last thing you'll do for this prince before you die. This prince will send your body back to the Ling family and tell your father that it was Ji Tianxing who killed you. Don't worry, your father will do anything to avenge you." Ling Yunfei's eyes widened even more. Endless anger and resentment poured out of her eyes, as well as deep regret. "Ji Ling. You. So. Despicable." It was just a few short words, but it used up the last of her strength. Large amounts of dark red blood flowed out of her mouth, dyeing her clothes red. The life in her eyes disappeared. Her breathing had already stopped, but her eyes were still wide open. She was unwilling to die in peace. Today, there are still 4 chapters. Please add this book to your bookshelf and give me 2 recommendation votes. Thank you. Chapter 51. In the middle of the night, the Ling family should have been sleeping soundly under the curtain of night. However, at this moment, the main hall of the Ling residence was brightly lit. There were many people walking back and forth, making sad and angry sounds from time to time. In the middle of the brightly lit main hall, there was a bamboo mat and a brocade bedding on the floor. On the blood-stained bedding, there was a young girl in black. Her face was pale and her eyes were wide open. This corpse was Ling Yunfei, who had died long ago. A few Ling family elders were surrounding the corpse. They were discussing and cursing in a low voice. A graceful and elegant middle-aged woman knelt beside the corpse, wailing in grief. The head of the family, Ling Si-hai, stood in the middle of the hall and looked at Ling Yunfei's corpse with a pale face. He was so angry that his whole body was trembling. Everyone could see that his heart was filled with anger and killing intent. His eyes had turned blood red. Just a few minutes ago, a carriage drove into the Ling residence and brought Ling Yunfei's corpse to him. The owner of the carriage, the little prince, told him personally that Ling Yunfei was going to meet Ji Tianxing at the plum garden in the western suburbs. When he heard the news and rushed to the plum garden to save her, he only saw Ling Yunfei's corpse lying in a pool of blood. After that, the little prince took out Ji Tianxing's invitation letter and gave it to Ling Si-hai. Then, he left quietly. Ling Si-hai could no longer hold back his anger and killing intent. He looked at the night outside the main door coldly and roared in a low voice, "Ji family, Ji Tianxing. No matter what, I will definitely kill you and cut you into pieces to pay for my daughter's life." The roar filled with killing intent reverberated in the main hall of the Ling residence. All the elders of the Ling family were also in a heavy mood. They cursed and swore to bury Ji Tianxing with Ling Yunfei. After Ji Tianxing returned to the Ji residence, he quietly returned to Qingfeng courtyard. He changed out of his black clothes and sat at the table in front of the window, deep in thought. He had already achieved his goal in the plum garden tonight. Things were just as he had guessed. Ling Yunfei didn't refine the God-seizing bead, but gave it to someone else. The person who got the God-seizing pearl was probably the man in black who saved Ling Yunfei in the plum village. He recalled the figure of the little prince, Ji Ling, and compared it with the black-clothed man. After a short moment, he had an answer in his heart, and a cold smile appeared on the corners of his mouth. A useless prince with a damaged dantian secretly colluded with Ling Yunfei and used the God-seizing pearl to steal my bloodline and power. After it's done, I'll use the red star flower as an excuse to release the news at the right time. This way, I can conceal the fact that he has repaired his dantian. Luoyang King Ji Ling, is it really you? If he had not discovered the clues and grasped the various clues, he would never have thought that this matter would involve the king of Luoyang. Although he did not have any concrete evidence to prove that the person who had obtained the God-seizing pearl was the king of Luoyang, he was confident that the king of Luoyang would be able to obtain the God-seizing pearl. However, based on the clues he currently had, he was 80% sure that the king of Luoyang was the real mastermind. The Ling family alone was already very difficult to deal with. If the king of Luoyang, who controlled the two prefectures and was even more powerful, Ji Tianxing only felt the pressure increase explosively. His heart felt heavy, as if a huge rock was pressing down on it. Tonight, I crippled Ling Yunfei, and the investigation led to the king of Luoyang. He will definitely do something. Next, my situation will be even more dangerous. If I'm not careful, I'll be doomed eternally. The thick sense of danger made his thirst for power even more urgent. He didn't dare to waste any time. He was determined to increase his power as much as possible before the crisis arrived. Thus, after he calmed down, he entered the secret room to cultivate. These 2 days of hard work had increased his power by 70%. Soon, he would be able to advance to true energy realm level 3. The fourth courtyard of the Ji mansion was the residence of the second elder, Ji Rufeng. In a dark secret room hidden underground, 2 people were whispering to each other. The burly Ji Rufeng, who wore a purple brocade robe, was sitting on a wooden armchair, deep in thought. In front of him stood a tall young man in luxurious clothes. It was Ji Hao. Ji Rufeng spoke with a serious expression. "Hao, the matter of Tai Town has been exposed. Ji Changkong is already investigating the accounts of the workshop in the eastern suburbs. He also secretly ordered people from the Shadow Sword Hall to investigate me. You have to be more careful in the near future. Don't give yourself away." "Father, I understand." Ji Hao nodded. He took out a thumb-sized scroll from his sleeve and reported in a low voice. "Father, I just received a pigeon message. The Ling family's Ling Yunfei is dead." Ji Rufeng raised his eyebrows. A trace of surprise flashed through his eyes. "Ling Yunfei is dead? Who killed her?" Ji Hao hurriedly answered truthfully, according to the Ling family, it was Ji Tianxing who killed her. Tonight, Ji Tianxing killed her in the plum garden in the western suburbs. Ji Rufeng frowned and said with a serious expression, I didn't expect that bastard Ji Tianxing to recover his power. This is unbelievable. He pondered for a moment and suddenly revealed a cold smile. Ling Yunfei was killed. With such a big thing happening, the Ling family definitely won't swallow this. There will definitely be a good show tomorrow. Ji Hao also nodded in agreement. He sneered, I think Ling Sihai will definitely bring a large group of experts to the Ji mansion and force Ji Tianxing to hand over Ji Tianxing, right? Ji Rufeng's eyes flashed. He said in a low voice, this is an excellent opportunity. It seems that I have to make a trip to the Ling family immediately. Ji Hao was stunned. He asked in confusion, Father, why are you going to the Ling family at this time? Ling Yunfei just died. The Ling family must hate our Ji family to the bone. Although this matter has nothing to do with us, if you go to the Ling family at this time, it's hard to guarantee that they won't vent their anger on you. Ji Rufeng looked at him with a smile and said meaningfully, you're still too young. You still don't understand the logic behind this. The Ling family wants Ji Tianxing to pay with his life. Ji Tianxing will definitely risk his life to protect Ji Tianxing. However, if Ji Tianxing dies, Ji Tianxing will lose his backing and will be at the mercy of the Ling family. The Ling family's target is Ji Tianxing, and our target is Ji Changkong. If I want to join forces with the Ling family to kill Ji Changkong, do you think the Ling family will refuse my cooperation? Ji Hao suddenly understood and revealed a smug sneer. Haha, of course the Ling family won't refuse. In fact, it's exactly what they want. Father, this move of yours is really too brilliant. This is the perfect opportunity to kill two birds with one stone. If this plan succeeds, Ji Tianxing and his son will die tomorrow and the Ji family will completely fall into our hand. Ji Rufeng nodded slightly and revealed a smug smile. He said earnestly, in the future, you must learn more and think more when you encounter problems. This way, you can obtain the greatest benefits with the smallest price. Ji Hao nodded with deep admiration and hurriedly cupped his hands. Father, this child will remember your teachings. Yen, it's good that you remember. Ji Rufeng nodded and turned to the door of the secret room. You stay here and wait for news. Father will go to the Ling family to find Ling Sihai. Brothers, I've added 2 chapters today. There's a total of 5 chapters. Please recommend, bookmark, tip, and give me a 5-star rating. Little he is begging everyone. Thank you very much.